Time travel has become so ubiquitous in speculative media that it's nearly cliché at this point. Whole entire series like Doctor Who have been based around the concept, and that shit's been going for the last 50 years. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when the idea of time travel in stories got started, but we do know when the first time machine was used to induce time travel. I'm gonna be honest, I thought that it was H.G. Wells in his story The Time Machine. Apparently this is incorrect, and it was actually the story The Clock That Went Backward by author Edward Page Michael, at least according to Wikipedia. And yes, I did make sure the annotation was legit, I'm not a heathen. Fittingly enough, the time machine featured in that story is a clock that simply winds backwards. Fitting, I say, because, well, that's kinda what happens in Steins Gate. Kinda? It's odd how serendipity works like that. I have the feeling I'm going to be saying that a lot this series, so let's begin. My name is Hedgehog, welcome back to this nonsense, and this is Steins Gate. Unlike the last several, and I mean several, videos I've made, I kind of have to assume that some of you are new for this one. Welcome! What you are about to see is an analysis/story recap of the original Steins Gate visual novel, featuring additional added English voice acting by the usual gang of idiots. Yes, that is their official name, I have finally decided. Don't worry, they're not terrible, only I am. This series of videos will contain full spoilers for Steins Gate, which makes it perfect if you have either A, played the game already, B, have no intention of ever playing this game but want to know what all the hullabaloo is about, or C, are a filthy, filthy anime only who can't be bothered to read the source material. I hope my sarcasm was apparent there. You'll have to get used to that. Speaking of which, time for me to shill! If you end up liking this video, further exhaust every other video I've made, which, good luck, I've spent the last 2 years covering the entirety of Higurashi, but you're still itching to receive more delicious Hedgehog content, I write award-winning audio dramas. They're little audiobooks that I've written and read out loud over the years, and oh boy, there are a lot of them. Links in the description to my website where you'll find them in every way, shape, and form you could possibly want. If you like Steins Gate, odds are that my characters and storytelling methods will appeal to you too. More importantly, however, I always like to take this moment to thank all of the voice actors, editors, and composers that helped me out with this video. The list keeps growing and growing. If you count the theme song cover, which I'm still salty I couldn't include in the video itself, I had 2 guest composers, which is nuts. Everyone involved is much more talented than me, so please go check out all of their links in the description, and be sure to shout out your favorite performance in the comments. God, nothing makes me happier, puts a big ol' fucking smile on my face. Alright, Jesus Christ, I really like to talk, so let's get into it. Steins Gate is the second game in the science adventure series of visual novels, conceived by Chiyomaru Shikoda and actually written by Naotaki Hayashi and produced by the company Mages with some occasional help from Nitro Plus. No, don't worry, you do not need to read Chaos Head, the first game, in order to understand what's going on in this one. In fact, I would actually suggest starting with Steins Gate because Chaos Head is a little, weeby. I think that's the best way to describe it. And yes, all of the titles are like that. Steins Gate was originally released back in 2009, was subsequently translated into about 50,000 languages due in large part to the runaway success of the anime adaptation in 2011, and has since had several re-releases, ports, and spin-off titles. And yes, if you're watching this after it's come out, I'm not using the remastered version. A, because it hasn't come out yet, and B, I think the character redesigns look stupid. But I'm a curmudgeon who hates remakes anyway, so take what I say with a grain of salt. However, you might notice that my version looks slightly different than you might be used to, and I will admit that I am using the Committee of Zero patch for the game, if only because the font looks inordinately better. No, I'm not sticking my head into the drama surrounding that bullshit. Literally, I just prefer the font. Also, I do have to thank them because if they hadn't released their tool to the public that extracts the scripts from the game, I might not be making this video. So thank you to them, and to Dragon for his computer knowledge and helping me make it work. You might have noticed that I mentioned some drama, because Steins Gate is one of the most famous visual novels ever, and has also one of the most famous anime adaptations ever. There's a lot of drama. So before we finally get into it, there's one more component of Steins Gate that I need to introduce to all of you, and that, well, that's its fanbase.
Objection!
Nothing's happened yet.
Sorry, I got excited.
And I promise I'm only taking the time to do this because it's going to become relevant to my main critique of the game. So, back in the day, Steins Gate comes out, and because it's the second game in the Science Adventure series, it's already got a built-in audience, so it does very well. Well enough that it's such an anime adaptation. Not only an anime adaptation, but one of the few visual novel anime tie-ins that was, well, that was actually any good. In fact, it was so fucking good that for years and years and years, it was the second highest rated anime on my anime list. That means that, hypothetically, Steins Gate is the second greatest anime of all time, at least according to a Western audience. And I mean, the adaptation by Studio White Fox is really, really good, but is it, like, second greatest anime of all time good? No. No, I'm gonna say no. So, Hedgehog, you might be asking, then why the hell was it the second highest rated anime on my anime list for years and years and years? And, well, you see, the thing is, every time that it looked like another anime might dethrone it, Steins Gate fans had a habit of going to that anime's page and review bombing the shit out of it until its rating average went down enough that it wasn't a threat anymore. Now, I do want to state for the record that I never verified this myself personally. I was an active member of the anime community at the time, but frankly, I just really didn't give two shits about anime review drama, and I never in my wildest dreams ever imagined that I would be spending a probable year of my life covering this fucking visual novel. I would probably be asking myself why I decided to do that instead of being a famous screenwriter, but life is kind of fucking weird sometimes. Anyway, even if the extent of the rumors was exaggerated, to my knowledge, that was a thing that very much happened, at least once. I tell you this specifically to let you know that at the time I was getting into anime, Steins Gate fans were kinda shitheads. I don't think they are so much anymore, but this was right around the same time that shit like Homestuck and My Little Pony were really popular, so, you know, fandom assholes. This is largely relevant because Steins Gate was an anime that people would just not shut up about at the time. I read quite a few articles that heralded it as one of the craziest mindfucks of modern anime, and frankly, that just isn't true. Maybe I read too many fucking complicated ass plots, but overall, Steins Gate's actually pretty simple. And I'm not even saying this is a bad thing. It does what it seems it set out to do very, very well. But even discounting the fan base, the game itself doesn't necessarily do a good job of informing you what sort of a story it's going to be. I don't want to get too into the weeds with it right now, but just keep all this information in the back of your heads as we plow forth. El Sai Kanguru.
The universe has a beginning, but it has no end. Infinite. Stars too have a beginning, but are by their own power destroyed. Finite. History teaches that those who hold wisdom are often the most foolish. The fish in the sea knows not the land. If they too hold wisdom, they too will be destroyed. It is more ridiculous for man to exceed light speed than for fish to live ashore. This may also be called God's final warning to those who rebel.
Hey, what are you mumbling about?
There's no sound from the phone against my right ear, only silence. I'm baking in the summer sun.
Okarin! Okarin!
We open on a busy street corner in Akihabara, one of the more infamous districts in Tokyo. Okabe Rintaro is here with his best friend, Mayuri. He's having some sort of clandestine conversation with an unknown individual over the phone.
Yeah, Dr. Nakabachi got the jump on us, but I'll make sure he tells us everything. What? The organization is already on the move? I see. So that's the choice of Steins Gate. El Sai Kanguru.
It seems as if they're infiltrating some sort of meeting. They climb up the 8 stories of the Radicon building, and Okabe is immediately out of breath, though Mayuri seems unaffected. He explains to us that she is 16 and is basically his little sister.
I used to hope that Mayuri would become the key to Steins Gate, but now I've reconsidered. I don't want that terrible fate for her. She should live a normal life. That is my present wish.
Wow, seems like this guy is involved in some really deep shit. He even has several names, of which Okabe Rintaro is only one.
Okabe Rintaro may be my real name, but I have rejected it, for it is stupid.
Okay, I can't keep up the facade anymore. Okabe Rintaro is not some crazy secret agent or anything like that. You, may have noticed that his phone screen was turned off earlier when he was having his mysterious phone call. Yeah, he's actually an 18-year-old jack-off with a bad case of chunibyo. Basically, he's convinced himself that he's a crazy mad scientist and spends every waking moment role-playing as Hoin Kyoma. Mayuri asks why they're here, and Okabe explains that they're about to see a press conference hosted by a certain Dr. Nakabachi, who claims to have invented a time machine.
I'd prefer not to get wrapped up in this mess. Nevertheless, I'm interested in what he has to say.
You wrapped something? Is it his birthday too?
Yeah, if you thought that Mayuri was going to be a beacon of sanity for us, then you are sadly mistaken. However, it seems like Okabe might not be as big of a tool as we assumed, because just then, something weird does happen. A large earthquake. Okabe abandons Mayuri and runs up to the roof, which seems to be the origin of the shaking. Beyond the door is a billowing cloud of smoke. Beyond that...
A strange machine is sitting in the middle of the roof. Is that what caused the shaking just now?
However, he doesn't get much time to gawk, as staff members lead him and the others who came to see the hullabaloo back downstairs for the conference. Unfortunately, when he gets back, Mayuri has wandered off. Okabe finds her on the 7th floor landing, staring at the capsules. The sight of her helps him calm down a little.
I really want an Upa.
And Upa is not, as you may initially think, the name of a really heinous venereal disease, but the mascot of a very popular anime called Rainet.
High school girls find these creatures adorable for some reason. Last year, an ugly frog character was the rage. Its name escapes me, though.
His name was Garo Froggy, and he was not at the center of a mind control conspiracy. Don't worry about it. Unfortunately for Mayuri, she is all out of coins for the gacha machine. Okabe begrudgingly provides one, and she wins something special, a rare metal Upa. However, they are interrupted by the announcement that the conference is beginning. Mayuri stays behind to write her name on the Upa, and Okabe soldiers forth. There are not a lot of people in the room. Very little for what is apparently the conference for the invention of a time machine.
I'm Dr. Nakabachi. Thank you all for coming. Now then, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to begin with my theory of time travel, the greatest scientific breakthrough of the century.
One thing you may notice about Steins Gate right away is that its character designs are incredibly unique. Some of it is in the line work, they all have these very specific eyes, but overall it still fits into the general category of anime art. What really sets it apart is the coloring, and specifically the texturing. There's this weird little texture that runs through all the character designs. Mayuri has very round splotches on both her hat and dress, and Nakabachi has what almost looks like paintbrush lines running through his jacket. It really lends the characters this almost gritty sort of style. They feel very grungy and jagged, and the specificity really draws you into the world and makes the characters all seem very unique.
Doctor!
Speaking of unique, Okabe has been listening to the man talk and has realized something very shocking. The good doctor stole his theory from a certain John Titor. Don't worry, if that name isn't familiar, we'll get into it in just a little while.
Shut your mouth, you little pest!
But before Okabe can retort further, someone grabs his arm. It's a girl. Okabe recognizes her. It's the girl genius Makise Kurisu. She just turned 18 and has already graduated from an American university. Goddamn! Could you come with me for a moment? He immediately comes to the conclusion that she must be a spy from the aforementioned organization that he's always going on about, the ones that are supposed to be after him. But he realizes he's already drawn too much attention to himself and decides it behooves him to follow her. By the way, you may have noticed that unlike in Higurashi, I am referring to the characters in the traditional last name then first name order that they use in Japan. Normally I would switch it back, but there's something about Rintaro Okabe and Kurisu Makise that just sounds wrong. Okabe mumbles some stuff about his delusions, but Kurisu is not having it. What's with this organization stuff?
It's me. I've been caught by an organization agent. Yes, it's Makise Kurisu. She's a dangerous one. No, it's fine. I'll find a way to...
Huh? Your phone's off. Who are you talking to?
That's no ordinary phone. It's designed to deactivate the moment it leaves my hands.
So you talk to yourself. Yeesh, right to the heart. They bicker for a little while, but Kurisu eventually makes it clear why she grabbed him. It seems that 15 minutes before the conference, Okabe approached her about something, looking really upset. Okabe has no idea
what you're talking about.
So he decides to make a dramatic exit and just leave.
Genius girl, our next meeting shall be as enemies. Farewell!
Except he realizes that he's forgotten something important. Mayuri. Way to go, dumbass! On his way back up to the conference room, he gets a weird text message with a video attached, but it's just a bunch of static, so he ignores it. Back in the conference room, Mayuri is standing in a corner, looking lost. He goes to grab her and leave, but there's one tiny problem.
Oh, Karin, my metal upa ran away. I think I dropped it.
Mayuri convinces Okabe to help her find it on the grounds that it's worth a lot since it's so rare.
Tutaru! Upa! Upa! Come out, wherever you are!
But suddenly, a blood-curdling scream cuts through the building. There's just a bunch of crazy shit going on today, isn't there? Okabe follows the scream, leaving Mayuri behind again, and once he reaches the source, he sees something on the ground.
No. Someone. Motionless. Who is it? The clothes are familiar. It can't be. Makise Kurisu is now face down in a pool of bright red blood.
He has a singular moment to panic before others catch up with him. Everyone screams and runs, and Okabe, in a daze, follows them. He grabs Mayuri and runs out of the building. Okabe panics a little, get used to that, and waxes poetic for a moment before calming down. Out here, it's just a normal day in Akiba. His friend Daru is the one who told him about Kurisu in the first place, so he decides to send him a text message.
Someone stabbed Makise Kurisu. Don't know who. Looked bad, hope she's okay.
Buddy, I think she's pretty dead. He hits send on the message.
What? What was that? Wait, look around. Summer break. Noon, the busiest street in town. Just now, thousands of pedestrians vanished into thin air. I saw them vanish with my own two eyes. I stand petrified, speechless, and alone on the empty street, desperate to find someone, anyone. I look up. And there, at the top of Radicon, sticking out from the 8th floor hall where we just were, is a crashed satellite.
And this is where I'd put the kick-ass theme song cover if YouTube wasn't such a little bitch. So okay, that was a lot. After that fast and explosive opening, what could be waiting for us in the rest of the story? Many hours of slice-of-life shenanigans and scientific jargon. Okay, I'm exaggerating, but this brings me to one of the main critiques many people have about Steins Gate. A very common phrase thrown around whenever one recommends Steins Gate is that it takes forever to get going. Basically, Steins Gate is divided into two sections. In the first, a bunch of dumbasses fuck around in an apartment, get involved in conspiracies, and try to puzzle out how a certain device they've gotten their grimy little mitts on works. Then in the second, well, the second half is not like that. Which means it's time for me to state my first controversial Steins Gate opinion of this series. I like the first half of Steins Gate way better than the second. It's going to take me the whole of this half to explain that, but suffice it to say, we're going to be slowing down a little from here on out. I'm not gonna lie, pacing is a very common problem in visual novels, and Hayashi is not the best at it.
Hey, you! Can you see us? Why won't you answer? I'm asking you a question. Yes, you on the other side of the monitor.
Me? Here? In my very comfy computer chair I got on a Black Friday sale? He waxes poetic about how true reality is on his side of the screen before cluing us in on what the fuck is going on.
This is the Future Gadget Laboratory, located in the Akihabara district of Tokyo. We call it simply the Lab. Our purpose is to rearrange the ruling structure of the world, the system.
Really, the lab is just a shitty studio apartment that Okabe is renting from a man named Tennouji, who owns the place and runs a store below them that sells CRT monitors, which at the time were quickly losing ground to LCDs. Okabe introduces us to his fellow lab mems, as Mayuri calls them, starting with himself, but we are already well aware of who he is.
Next, we have our resident cosplayer and only female member, Lab Mem number 002, Shiina Mayuri.
Tuturu! Call me Mayushi. I like making costumes more than wearing them.
And last, we have our resident super hacker, Lab Mem number 003, Hashida Itaru.
Stop calling me that. It's Super Hacker. Duh.
What a motley little crew we've got ourselves here. By the way, you might have noticed that certain text is colored oddly and accompanied by a pop-up. Since Steins Gate is so inundated with pop culture references, internet lingo, and conspiracy theories, they've included a handy little guide that will explain them as they come up. Back when Steins Gate first came out, some of these terms weren't as mainstream as they are now, so for the most part, I'll leave you to look them up on your own, although I may spotlight a couple here and there if I think they're funny. The characters go back and forth for a while and wonder about the possibility that they are in fact characters in a game instead, before Okabe sits back and shows us who he's actually talking to. Psych! He wasn't breaking the fourth wall this whole time! He was in fact talking to Alpaca Man! What the fuck is this horrifying thing? Don't worry about it, we're moving on! Daru, that's Hashida's nickname, makes fun of Okabe for his chuuni delusions, which Okabe hates because Daru, rabid otaku that he is not one to talk.
He has 2D wives on whom he cheats with 3D maids. I don't agree with his preferences, but to him, anything's fine as long as it's moe.
Besides that, however, he's actually a very competent programmer and engineer who is the only one here with any sort of inventing ability. Unlike Lab Mem 002, the head of the costume department for women.
The truth is that Mayuri is completely useless.
However, he'd never kick her out, as she was the first person to join the lab, and also, in her words,
Mayushi is Okarin's hostage. I belong here.
right, we're not gonna wade into that shit just now. I'm sure it's fine. Meanwhile, Okabe is getting pissed at the Alpaca Man game for not working properly and hits the TV, promptly causing it to stop working. Frustrated, he lays back on the couch and conveniently remembers the scene that bridges this one to the prologue. Right before his eyes, all the pedestrians in front of Radicon vanished, and in their place, the huge satellite thing, which may or may not be the same device he saw on the roof, is stuck in the building's side.
What a surprise, huh? It made a huge kaplow sound.
It certainly did make a sound. Though I don't think it was a kaplow. I'd say it was more like zzz.
I may have given him a little currently unsubstantiated shit earlier, but Hayashi is an incredibly talented scene writer. Okay, looking at the previous line, you might think I'm being sarcastic, but I genuinely mean it. I've always been a huge fan of natural-sounding dialogue. I adore when characters talk to each other like actual people, discuss inane shit, have inside jokes. It's the number one thing you can do to endear me to your characters, and Hayashi is the master at it. Having Mayuri and Okabe, in his head, debate what the satellite sounded like when it landed is very cute and really goes a long way to paint Mayuri as a simple and cute girl, and Okabe as a contrarian who really needs to be the smartest guy in the room. All in 2 lines. One problem. Mayuri doesn't recall the crowd vanishing. In fact, she doesn't even remember Kurisu getting stabbed. It seems that somehow they never went to the conference at all, and it was canceled due to the fucking satellite. Back in the present, Okabe is concerned about his differing memories, but he decides that it's all just an organization cover-up and grabs himself a Dr. P from the fridge. He heads to the development lab, which is just a cordoned-off area of the apartment with a computer and a bunch of junk. Yep. That's right, these idiots have actually invented things. And they all have ridiculous names like, could this be Aura Aura, which is a lie detector you stick on your thumb? And yes, the name is a reference to what you're thinking of. That's right, it's clearly Juju's Bizarre Adventure. There's also Mode Snake, which is a crazy instant humidifier that can fill a room with steam. One gets the sense that most of these inventions are either useless or don't work quite like they're supposed to. Okabe always wants to name them cool things after mythology, but he is usually outvoted by Mayuri and Daru.
Anyway, our current problem is future gadget number 8, the phone wave name subject to change.
Yes, Okabe added that last part, and yes, it is one of Dragon's favorite jokes of the game, so I will be including plenty of opportunities for him to say it. Strap in. The phone wave, name subject to change, it is also one of my favorite jokes of the whole game, so y'all are just fucking screwed, is a microwave that can start remotely from your phone, and it does actually work. However, the phone wave, name subject to change, seems to possess an unintended secondary function, which Mayuri discovered when she entered a code backwards into the phone. Instead of thawing her juicy chicken number 1, it came out more frozen than when she put it in, and when Daru and Okabe tried to recreate the phenomenon with a banana...
It turned out really weird. I just don't get it.
Mayuri! Bring forth the bananas!
Are you gonna turn them into gel bananas again? Why do you have to use the whole bunch? It's a waste of food. Mayushi always buys the bananas, and now Mayushi can't eat a single one.
Okabe agrees that next time they'll only use one, but right now he already has the whole bunch in, so it's too late. What a prick. As Daru would say, this is why we love him! This brings us to Steins Gate's game mechanic. Yes, singular game mechanic. Whenever you want, you can make Okabe look like a total tool by glancing at his phone in the middle of conversations. Throughout the game, characters will contact you, and you can choose how to respond to them. For the most part, this will only give you special cosmetics for the phone, but the true ending of the game is locked behind putting in the exact right sequence of responses to a certain character. The phone will also be used to do specific things at certain points of the game, like now, when we are the ones who input the code to reproduce the gel bananas. For you see! When you enter the code backwards, in this case 120 pound instead of pound 120, the microwave table spins backwards. I told you the intro would come back.
That might have serious implications if we look at quantum critical behavior driven by Hun's rule.
Yeah! No.
Not Hun's rule?
No.
Okay.
I love these stupid fucking idiots. Genuinely, how Okabe and Daru interact is one of my favorite parts of the game, and their friendship is just certainly something. It really reminds me of a lot of my friendships, but also all of us are kind of jackasses. Anyway, the microwave dings, and this is what emerges. Appetizing. Really, really soft and squishy.
Soft and squishy bananas, huh? Soft and squishy banana. Mayushi, say, your banana's all soft and squishy for me.
Your banana's all soft and...
Don't make her say that, you perv!
Okabe writes some stuff on the whiteboard and tries to be clever, but it's clear that none of them know what the hell they're doing or what is even going on here. At the moment, they're at a loss, and Okabe and Daru have to attend this summer vacation seminar for class credit, as they are both college students. Not to digress too much, but genuinely, it is such a breath of fresh air for Steins Gate to not take place in a fucking high school. Half of nearly every visual novel ever made takes place in high school, and any time they don't, it immediately piques my interest. Though I may be several years out now, I still relate more to college kids than I do to high schoolers, and I'm sure a lot of other adults probably do too. Of course, some of the characters, like Mayuri, are still in high school, but since the story takes place over summer break, this is largely irrelevant, and I kinda just end up picturing all of them as college students. Anyway, Daru and Okabe once again pass the satellite, but the street is cordoned off, and so they continue on their way. They ride the elevator up, and Okabe spouts more bullshit about Steins Gate before the door opens, and he runs into someone. Ah, I'm sorry.
What? You?
Of course. It's Makise Kurisu. Okabe, with his typical lack of self-awareness, begins mumbling shit about her being dead.
That again?
Wait, what does he mean by that? Well, as it turns out, a week ago, Daru received a message from Okabe. 3 of them, in fact, dated a week into the future. His message was garbled, split, and unfinished, but it was, in fact, sent this very day. Interesting. Right, back to Kurisu. Okabe mildly harasses her in his attempt to determine that she's real. Are you trying to get yourself arrested?
I just want to know the truth.
What truth, you perv? You stupid? Wanna die? Once again, Okabe's story isn't matching with anyone else's as he tries to explain what he saw at Dr. Nakabachi's conference. But before they can make any headway into an explanation, a professor interrupts and ushers Kurisu away. Okabe wonders why she's here, and though Daru speculates it's to see the lecture, he's not exactly wrong. I'd like to thank everyone for coming to hear me speak today. It's my first time giving a lecture like this, so please forgive me if I'm a little nervous. She gives Okabe a sharp look, and he wonders what he did. My guy! For today's lecture, I've been asked to speak on the subject of time travel. It's not really my area of expertise, but I'll try my best. Let me start by saying that time travel is just absurd.
Objection!
Yeah, Okabe, I actually agree with you. Why is a neurologist being asked to speak about a physics topic? Oh. Wait, that's not what you have the problem with. He's upset that she dissed the concept of time travel. Okay, it's fine, I guess. It'll be easier to talk in a discussion format. She's kind enough to prevent security from kicking him out, but that doesn't mean she's on his side. She spends the next 15 to 20 minutes of real time explaining and breaking down 2 different theories of time travel. Frankly, I find it fascinating, and one of my favorite things about the science adventure series is how its plots are largely based off of real scientific concepts, and that they take the time to explain said concepts, within the context of the stories. Except most of this information ends up not really being relevant to the plot. So we're just gonna move on by. However, this is one of my favorite scenes in the game, so along with a couple of others, we have dubbed this scene in full. There are links down in the description, and it should also be popping up on the top of your screen right about now. After the lecture, Okabe is convinced that due to his messed up memories, he needs to get an exorcism. Great. So he heads to one of the 2 shrines in Akiba, the Yanagibayashi shrine.
It's Ocarine! Tuturu!
Mayuri is here and is talking to another young girl, one Urushibara Luka. While Mayuri could be described as cute in a new age way, Luka is a very traditional beauty.
But he's a guy.
Good afternoon, Okabe-san.
More feminine than any girl I know. But he's a guy. Looks stunning in Miko robes. But he's a guy. Holding a bamboo broom, apparently in the middle of cleaning. But he's a guy. It's almost evening, yet still hot as hell outside. But he's a guy.
Yep, I think we get it there, bud. And, Luka. We will discuss Luka later. For now, we are introduced to the chief priest's son and also one of Mayuri's friends from school. Okabe has taken him as a disciple, training him with the demon sword Samadare.
Oh yeah! You bought it at Bladeworks, right? I think you said it cost $9.80.
Don't say another word! Any more and they will come to silence you. So, Luka-ko, are you making sure to practice with Samidare like I told you?
Yes, I do practice swings once a day.
Okabe claims that it only looks like an imitation sword and it is really incredibly powerful.
And it was on sale for only 980 yen, tax included.
As they continue, you get the sense that Luka remains politely confused by Okabe's shenanigans and, unlike the others, almost seems a little convinced they're real. They go on for a minute about Luka's training before Mayuri begs him to wear one of the cosplays she's made, which is, of course, for a female character. Okabe interrupts her, asking Luka to perform an exorcism. He runs off to get the zigzaggy paper thingies, as Okabe calls them, and Mayuri checks the time. She's got an old-fashioned pocket watch that looks a little out of place. Apparently she's had it since elementary school. She has to leave for home, and so takes off. Luka returns, but doesn't seem too confident about performing this exorcism.
Okay, but do you really want me to do it? What exactly am I exercising, anyway?
Gah! It's the evil spirit! In my arm!
Okabe takes it a little far in his performance. Luka almost starts crying. With the strength of gods, he lightly taps Okabe on the arm, and Okabe claims the exorcism a success, even though literally nothing happened. Good job, team! Later on and back at the lab, Okabe takes the busted TV down to the Brawn Tube workshop. As you will see in a moment, we've entered the portion of the story where all of the love interests / important characters get introduced one after the other in a very mechanical way. The story kind of clunks from one introduction to the other in such a way that you can almost see the gears turning. I think it's because there's not much in the middle of each of them, which makes the fact that these are clearly character introduction scenes quite transparent. It's not really a big deal, but I'm building up to a point, so bear with me. Obviously, Luka was the first of our big love interest intros. Yes, Luka is a love interest. Don't ask me how this works. We will be getting to it. And now we're about to meet the second.
Yo, what's up, Okabe?
All right, I'm kidding. It's not Tennouji, I promise. That's a very different genre of visual novel. This is the owner of the CRT store and Okabe's landlord, who was briefly mentioned earlier. His name is Tennouji, but Okabe insists on calling him Mr. Brawn. You will quickly realize that Okabe has a habit of giving everyone weird nicknames. Okabe comments that he's open late tonight, and Tennouji mentions he's expecting someone. Okabe thinks it's his daughter, whom he describes as a chipmunk.
Don't be calling my little girl a chipmonkey here. If you touch an eye, you're dead.
They bicker about prices for the TV repair for a minute before they are interrupted.
What's up? I called earlier. I'm Amane.
Apparently, this is the girl Tennouji was waiting for. She's here for a job interview.
Right, what was your name again?
Amane Suzuha.
Why do you want to work here?
Because I love CRTs.
Hired, you start tomorrow.
Kids, It's just that easy. If you're struggling to get a job, they get better. With that taken care of, attention quickly turns back to Okabe and why he's still here.
You dare ask my name? Countless women have learned my name only to find themselves targets of the organization. Sarah in America, Claudia in Italy, Simone in France. I won't put anyone else in danger.
I don't know anything about this organization that's after you. But if you're ever in trouble, Okabe Rintaro, let me know. I can help with stuff like that.
Huh. Oh my god, she's just as weird as he is. Tennouji explains to her that Okabe is just delusional, and she takes this very seriously as well.
So that's the current trend. Thanks for the tip.
Using out-of-date speech patterns, taking clearly fictional threats too seriously, commenting about current trends. Hayashi, you're not clever. I'm gonna keep it to myself just a second longer in case anyone hasn't immediately caught on, but I want you all to know that every single person I've shown Steins Gate to has immediately clocked her for exactly what she is, and I'm sure you probably have too. The next morning, Okabe checks the occult boards on @channel, which is the fictional equivalent of something like our 4chan, but just not like quite that bad. 4chan when 4chan was big. He's looking for posts about the satellite to see if anyone else remembers things differently, but he discovers something else. Posts by a user named John Titor. Okay, so let's finally talk about him. John Titor is a real-life conspiracy figure. He posted on forums back in the early 2000s, claiming to be a time traveler and in possession of a real time machine. He even explained some of the mechanics of how it worked in the various posters. Most people believe he was a troll or was role-playing very heavily or something like that, as some of his posts contradicted each other, and one day he just kind of stopped altogether. But now he's posting on @channel 10 years later in perfect Japanese, despite previously claiming to be an American. Okabe thinks he's a troll, takes one to know one, I guess, and decides to check out some of his posts.
I don't expect you to believe I came from the year 2036. I see that everyone would like to know more about my time machine. Time travel technology was developed by CERN. They completed the first time machine in 2034.
CERN being the equivalent of CERN, CERN in real life, a European organization dedicated to research on nuclear physics.
CERN has a monopoly on time machines. Not even the most powerful nations on Earth can acquire one, to say nothing of private citizens. CERN used their time machine for power. By 2036, the world has become a dystopia. There is no war, no conflict. However, there is a false peace founded on the complete eradication of liberty. What does LOL mean?
Titor goes on to explain about the dystopia CERN, the European Research Lab, has created, about how his time machine is stolen from them, and how he has come back to this time to change the future by using world lines. This turns out to be a particular brand of the multiverse theory, which states that there are infinite universes based on the choices we make, and each choice splits off into several different timelines.
So who was right? I mean, about all of this?
Hayashi
just launched into this long monologue where he got like 92% correct. I mean, we couldn't believe what we were hearing. That's him, actually, right up there.
This makes most potential paradoxes irrelevant. Like, for instance, if you went back in time and killed your grandfather, you would still exist, but now there'd be another timeline where you were never born. Okabe thinks this is all ridiculous, that no one can see him for the troll he clearly is. He does a simple search in the name John Titor to prove his point, only to come up empty. There are no results. What the hell? He calls Dara, remembering that they distinctly had a conversation about John Titor in the past.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Right now, he's at his favorite maid cafe, May Queen plus Nyan Nyan, so Okabe rushes over to meet him there. On the way, he passes by Radicon, where a large group of reporters and gawkers has formed to look at the satellite. He's about to move on when a woman happens to hold a phone camera up to his face. Casting Dragon was an ideal choice because he is also a freak about being perceived. Okabe immediately approaches her, but she doesn't notice him for a solid minute. I can't really have my voice actors demonstrate the following conversation because, well, there isn't really one, but allow me to show you one of my favorite gags of this game. If you've been looking at the screen right now, you will probably have noticed that the name tag of this lady has changed with each line she said, from voyeur lady to possible organization spy to probably not organization spy. This is a gag that could only be accomplished in a visual novel, and it simply tickles me pink.
Sorry if I upset you.
She finally speaks and reveals that her name is Kiryu Moeka. Okabe doesn't really care who she is, he just wants to delete that photo.
I have a question for you. May I?
First, the photo.
There's an urban legend in Akihabara. Have you heard of it?
She goes on to tell him about a rare retro PC called the IBN, like IBM 5100. Okabe recognizes it as the PC that John Titor, the original John Titor from America, was trying to get his hands on. She asks him if he knows anything about it, and like an idiot, Okabe mentions that Daru might know something. Cut to Moeka blackmailing him with a picture she took for Daru's phone number. Apparently, Moeka is a reporter for a sleazy magazine. She doesn't really look like she's a good fit for the job, but who really cares? Okabe finally agrees to give her his number, and there's a whole bit about it. Then she finally lets him leave.
I'll email you later. So ask, okay?
For being so quiet, she's very persistent. He gives her the nickname Shining Finger for her outrageous typing speed and moves on. Okabe makes it to May Queen only to be harassed on his way in.
It's Okarin! Kyoma, it's great that you came, yeah?
Obviously, yes, Mayuri works as a maid here, but who's the other girl? This is the #1 maid at the Catgirl Maid Cafe and the love of Daru's life. At the moment, we don't know her real name, but her maid name is Ferris Nyan Nyan.
Are you holding another secret meeting to overthrow the evil organization, yeah? Ferris wants to join too, yeah?
No chance. The organization isn't threatened by cat-eared maids.
Not true, yeah? Ferris has the perfect secret technique to help take them down. Yes, Nya. After completing my pilgrimage to the Yana Highlands and overcoming my mentor's death, I finally mastered it.
What mentor?
Yeah, so Ferris is the only person in his life that will buy into his delusions, but she's so good at it that she kind of takes over his narrative, and Okabe absolutely hates it. It is so funny to watch this asswipe get his just desserts. Ooh, girls, we are eating good today! Okabe humors her for a little while longer, and even Mayuri gets in on the conversation before they finally lead him over to Daru. Also, yes, Ferris does end nearly every sentence with a nya, or in some other way it includes cat puns in her speech. She's a cat girl in a visual novel. I honestly don't know what you expected.
So, what were you just talking about with Ferris? I want details.
Oh, poor Daru, he really does have it bad. Mayuri comes in with a very accurate statement. In this little triangle, it's clear that Daru is not the one Ferris has feelings for.
I have no interest in women who dress themselves in lies.
So this is today's "You're the last one I want to hear that from" thread.
Silence, you unfaithful bastard! All your 2D wives are crying.
Finally, Okabe gets to the point. John Titor. But much like his memories of the conference, Daru has no idea who he's talking about. Okay, so that's a dead end. Okabe decides to ask him about the IBN 5100 instead, and ding ding ding, we have a winner.
Back when it came out, computers were so expensive that average people couldn't get their hands on them. It was full of proprietary IBM technology and was a pretty powerful computer for its time.
He has also heard the rumors that there's one somewhere in Akiba right now, but before we can get into it, Okabe's phone buzzes.
Okabe-san, I mailed you as soon as I could. Sorry for taking your picture. It wasn't on purpose. I should get to the point. I'm really sorry for asking like this, Okabe-kun, but it would be super great if you could ask your friend, the super hacker, about the IBN 5100. Be absolutely, positively sure to reply, okay? And if you could, I'd be super happy if you gave me your super hacker friend's email address. I'll mail again? It's okay to mail again, right? Of course it is. Bye. Moeka.
Ah, so that's her deal, huh? Oh boy, we certainly are accruing a strange assortment of characters, aren't we? He tells her the bad news that some of Daru's cohorts tried to track it down to no avail, and she immediately replies.
Is that true? It can't be. I'll mail you again.
Oh dear lord, she's already getting clingy. This is really not good. Ferris brings Okabe his order of omu rice, writing the phrase, "The world is doomed" on it in ketchup, before asking Daru if he's going to participate in the Ferris Cup. Apparently, Ferris is a master at the game Rhinet Axis Battlers, which, yes, is the anime that the Upa comes from. She's holding an unofficial tournament here at the cafe, and if someone beats her, they get to taste her home cooking.
Rhinet Access Battlers, huh? Whenever I hear that name, I remember the former champion. Has it already been 2 years?
Kyoma, you still can't forget him, can you, Nya? I remember that you and the champion, my brother, were such good friends, Kyoma. You were so close it made me jealous, Nya.
Speaking of weird ladies, holy hell. Okabe finally pulls Daru back to the lab, and he goes to check on @channel. Tighter is still typing away. He tells us a little more behind the scenes of his time machine, but the forums are really not having it. Anyway, it's time for some experimenting! These are some of my favorite scenes of the game. It makes it feel like a real mystery, and since Hayashi takes us pretty much step by step through the process of experimentation, it really feels like we're participating in the discoveries. Today, Okabe and Daru are trying to figure out what makes the phone wave, name subject to change, do that thing it does. Apparently, Okabe actually did some research at the university, including bringing a sample of his gelbana to stick under a microscope. His findings, however, were pretty inconclusive, and then he covers it up with another insane scientist bit. By the way, a small detail you may notice is that Okabe describes his actions very specifically when he's in Houin Kyoma mode. Usually when you are narrating a thing you did, you'd say, "My lips twist into a maniacal grin," but here Okabe says,
"I twist my lips into a maniacal grin."
It's a really small detail, but it gives Okabe the impetus on his actions. He is actively choosing to do these things, there is a purpose to them. It's a very early hint that he isn't sniffing his farts quite as much as he lets other people believe. Again, Hayashi is a brilliant scene writer. His strengths lie in the details. Just like how it's the details that are ultimately going to solve the mystery of the phone wave. Great transition, English major, by the way. Daru insists on using one banana like Mayuri asked. Okabe was going to use the whole bunch again. They stick it into the phone wave and wait. But when Daru opens it again, something odd happens.
What? What? Well, it's gone. The banana.
It's me. Slight problem. We may have awakened something terrible.
What do you mean, something terrible?
Okabe thinks that Daru took the banana. Daru thinks that Okabe took the banana as part of his delusions. They go back and forth until Okabe turns back to the bunch and... well, I guess we found the banana. The boys are flabbergasted.
Hey, Daru. Could this possibly be a teleporter? We've invented a teleporter?
Oh. That looks like an interesting experiment. And so it begins.
Impossible! What are you doing here? The published 18-year-old genius girl, a sadist who humiliates men in public, also known as the zombie. Makise, Kurisu.
Nice exposition, bro.
After a minute of bickering, you're going to be hearing that phrase a lot when it comes to Kurisu and Okabe. Kurisu gets to the point. Daru gave her his address after the lecture, and she's here to see what the hell Okabe was talking about when he said he saw her die. Her current hypothesis is that it was just an excuse to grope her. However, the experiment the boys are running has piqued her interest, and so she heads back to the development room, no permission required, apparently. She approaches the gelbana, and since there's no forceps to be had, she simply sticks her finger into it before popping the residue in her mouth. Okabe offers her a real banana, but she declines. As if, who would eat some perv's banana?
A perv's banana. Eat a perv's banana. Squishy, finger in mouth. Gross! With a sour expression. Makise, can you say that one more time? With a more humiliated expression, if you please?
It takes her a second, but Kurisu catches on a little faster than Mayuri. Thank God, because it looks like Okabe had no plans of bailing her out of this one. She is clearly irritated, but realizes she also came across as a bit harsh. She turns back to the subject of the gelbanas and asks what happened to them and what the hell is up with the microwave.
That's top secret. The one thing I'm cleared to share with unauthorized individuals is that its name is the phone wave, name subject to change.
Daru cuts in with the fact that Kurisu might be able to tell them what's actually going on. This gives Okabe a brilliant idea.
You said your name's Christina, right?
Who the hell's Christina? I never said that. And so it begins. Okabe wants her to formally join the lab, becoming Lab Mem 004. And if she betrays their secrets, he'll spill the details of her previous banana eating to Science magazine. Devious. The second condition is that she forget all about previous acts of molestation on Okabe's part. Even if she's appalled, she ultimately agrees.
Welcome, Christina. Codename, the Zombie.
I won't answer to either. Use my real name, Houin. Finally, moving past that, Okabe and Daru explain the situation with the phone wave, name subject to change, and Kurisu asks to run the experiment again. And indeed, even if the two boys are staring at the bunch of bananas, at exactly 104 seconds they blink, and there's now 2 gelbanas. Mayuri is not going to be happy. Okabe tries to convince her that they've clearly invented a teleporter, but based on their other experiments, nothing else is teleported, so it's clearly not that. She seems stumped and asks if there's anything else they've noticed about it.
Oh, right. One time it shut off a huge electrical discharge. It was like a fluorescent light lit up the development room. It lasted about 2 seconds, I guess?
Okabe didn't know about this. Apparently Daru was doing some maintenance on it and had his own phone hooked up to it at the time. It happened around noon yesterday, right when Okabe had gone to see Nakabachi's presentation, right when he sent Daru the message about Kurisu being stabbed. Daru still thinks that was a prank, and Okabe tries to show them that it's not, but when he checks to send messages, it's not there. Suddenly, Okabe is hit with a flash of inspiration.
I've reached the answer, and now the world will tremble. The disappearance of my mail, the strange timestamp, and the sudden electrical discharge must be related somehow.
Hashida-san, talking to this guy is so tiring.
Everyone feels like that at first. The trick is to not take him seriously.
So they obviously decide to try to recreate the electrical discharge, but before they can start...
Time to eat some chicken! Juicy chicken number 1! Huh? We have a guest?
And this is where my stomach dropped, and I was mentally preparing for these girls to immediately not like each other and go off on a bit about Kurisu stealing Okabe. I'm Makise. Apparently, I'm a lab mem now.
Really? That's great! Another girl lab mem!
Thank God these two are written like real people and not like anime girls. Okabe instructs Mayuri to put her chicken in the microwave, and the poor girl thinks they're just warming it up.
You there, assistant.
When did I become your assistant?
Just send something to my phone.
So Daru sends the message, Okabe's a perv. Good going, Daru.
Oh no! Mayushi's bananas!
Just as they're starting the experiment, Mayuri finds her bananas and rightfully comes to the conclusion that her chicken is also currently being experimented on. She runs to the microwave to go rescue her poor chicken, but as soon as she does, Okabe grabs Mayuri. The room is filled with smoke, but as his vision returns, it seems that everybody is okay. Well, everybody except the microwave, that is.
What the hell? How did that... Yeah, it's a microwave, but it's not heavy enough to make a hole in the floor.
Just as my calculations predicted.
He says his special made-up words to himself, and that gets him to calm down. I'm starting to think that Okabe might use his mad science persona for deeper reasons than being bored. Mayuri frees her chicken from its prison, but it's burnt black.
Juicy chicken number 1 made a noble sacrifice for the progress of science.
The chicken doesn't matter. Right now, we need to determine what happened with the phone wave.
It doesn't matter? That's so mean, Christina-chan.
Hey, Hallween Kyoma, do something about this. Mayushi-san learned my name wrong.
More importantly, we need ventilation.
Silence! All of you!
I really didn't need to spend this much time on dialogue. In fact, it's an indulgence that's going to make this video even longer, but this is the first and one of the best examples of how this core cast speaks to each other. We're going to be spending a lot of time with these 4 idiots fucking around in an apartment, and they just make me so happy. The way they speak to each other is so natural and so unique. They quickly develop an incredibly specific dynamic, and each one of them has their own sort of relationship with the 3 others. It's honestly very impressive how specific these feelings are, and how Hayashi sticks to them so strongly that it really feels like you're a fly on the wall of a very real friend group. Anyway, Okabe checks his phone, and sure enough, he did indeed receive 2 messages 5 days ago. Listen, I had to give Dragon 1, okay? He was giving me the biggest, wettest puppy dog eyes. Anyway, let's move on.
I've discovered the phone wave name subject to change is true hidden function.
Just spit it out. What do you think it is?
The mail was sent to the past. The chicken returned to its frozen state. The plucked banana returned to the bunch. The phone wave name subject to change is a time machine!
So if for some reason you came into this video having no idea what Steins Gate was about, well, Now you do, if the intro somehow didn't tip you off. We pick back up the next morning, kind of. It's noon, and Okabe is lounging around the apartment. After the events at the end of Chapter 1, he and Daru spent the whole night experimenting, but weirdly enough, they could no longer get any sort of results whatsoever. Like, they couldn't even make gel bananas anymore, which is really odd. Mayuri was pretty upset about her food being eaten again, so she's gone, and right after the initial experiment, Kurisu kind of freaked out and ran out of the lab, which is weird. There's also another problem. Okabe has about 5 new messages on his phone. They are all from Moeka.
Are you still asleep? Rise and shine. Have you talked to the super hacker yet?
Etc., etc. This is why we don't give random women on the street our phone number. Okabe asks Daru if he wants to go get some food, but Daru is busy looking at pictures of a very large machine.
The Large Hadron Collider sure is cute.
This man will really go for anything, won't he? Anyway, he explains to Okabe that the LHC is one of CERN's devices for experimentation. Turns out that Daru knows a lot about CERN. They are the guys who invented the internet, and now they're primarily focused on doing research into particle physics. The LHC is a really long tunnel underground that's purpose is to smash a bunch of particles together.
Before they started, there were rumors that the experiment might create mini black holes.
But CERN has denied that they have ever done it. This reminds Okabe of something. Wasn't John Titor saying something about mini black holes? He's starting to put together a plan in his mind.
Daru, I know what we must do. You are a super hacker. See where I'm going with this?
No, not at all.
Hack into CERN.
Okabe, what the fuck are you talking about? I don't think there's any hacker who's talented enough to hack into the guys who invented the internet. Oh, okay, Daru's agreed, and he's just fucking doing it. Well, alright then. Okabe lets him have at it and decides to check the forums. John Titor is posting once more. Okabe gets involved and directly asks him about CERN.
You're gonna believe this time traveler? Lol, without proof? Are you an idiot?
I wrote about CERN yesterday. The only other thing I can say is that you must not believe their lies. They have already succeeded at creating micro black holes.
But before he can email him, Okabe is once again interrupted. Suzuha peeks her head in to tell him that the TV repair is done. Trying to be quiet to not disturb Daru, he goes to speak to her outside. She's confused, so he explains to her about the Future Gadget Laboratory and how they're dead set on defeating the evil organization.
Is the evil organization CERN? Oh, so I was right. Those guys really are a contemptible lot, aren't they?
He is freaked out that she guessed, but apparently she heard them through the open window this morning. Okay, that's a reasonable... Wait a second! This doesn't explain why she's already suspicious of CERN at all! Suzuha takes Okabe into the store, Tennouji is nowhere to be found, and gives him the bill for the TV. He somehow manages to convince her he's an Esper after he calls her out on a lie.
But still, it's amazing that people like you exist. Maybe CERN is the reason there aren't more where I came from.
Just then, he gets another email from Shining Finger, but ignores it. Seeing the look in his face, Suzuha asks if he got bad news, and he explains that he's being stalked by a woman obsessed with finding an IBM 5100. Suzuha immediately knows exactly what he's talking about, so obviously he questions her.
I don't know about it personally, but I happened to hear about it from a knowledgeable acquaintance of mine or something like that.
Who are you?
I was thinking of giving you a bunch of interesting information on the IBM 5100, but when you look at me like that, I don't feel like it anymore.
Apparently, the IBM 5100 has a hidden function that only some of its programmers knew about.
It can decipher IBM's proprietary programming language, which was written before APL and BASIC became widespread. Isn't that surprising? Now it's a dead programming language that can only be deciphered by an IBM 5100.
Which is why they're so rare. Okabe isn't particularly interested at the moment, but he soon will be. Okay, but why does Suzuha know all this stuff? Well, the game isn't ready to tell us yet, but I'm going to lay out what everyone here definitely already knows. Suzuha is clearly a time traveler, at the very least. Hayashi isn't particularly coy about it, but I feel like it's very on purpose. He's using a technique that I actually use quite often. Hayashi is dangling a very obvious twist in front of our noses, so we don't look too deeply into further details. Yes, Suzuha being a time traveler is obvious. Yes, a secondary identity that she holds is also pretty obvious, but there's definitely a little more to Suzuha than that, and for keeping that part so closely to his chest, I commend Hayashi greatly. Anyway, 20 hours have now passed, and Daru is in the thick of it. To pass the time, Okabe checks @channel again, and once again, there's John Titor. Today, he's discussing what life is like in 2036, and Okabe asks him if World War III went on as scheduled, but Titor is confused.
World War III? Is that something I said in a different world line? I would like to talk to you in private. Please email me when you have time.
He sends out his email address, big mistake, and of course Okabe decides to email him. He includes all the things he knows about the Titor from the year 2000. If Titor can't answer his question satisfactorily, then he'll know he's an imposter.
Good morning!
Looks like Mayuri has forgiven them for the Juicy Chicken #1 incident. She's heard they've been up 2 days and has brought them canned Odin to push them through. She and Okabe have a whole exchange about trading the various contents of their Odin cans when Daru starts muttering to himself.
Soon. If I can just get the SQL table, I'll have more than enough passwords. You're no match for me. Oh, yes. Yes! Matching ID and passwords. Login complete. Hell yeah! Taste it! Yes! Yes! Yes!
I go back and forth, but sometimes I genuinely think Daru might be my favorite character in this story. So yeah, turns out after 20 straight hours, Daru actually succeeded. Holy hell, why is he so competent? Okabe, where did you find him?
Well done! You really are the world's greatest super hacker.
Hacker.
Hacker, I'm glad you're on my side. So, did you find out how they're planning to destroy the world?
Obviously not yet. Daru eats his own Odin can, and they get back to checking out whose ID they've swiped. They didn't get the admin's password, but they do have a fair amount of access to emails and such, courtesy of Jack, the Accelerator Division Chief.
You know, looking through someone else's email without permission makes me feel really guilty. Oh, Karin, you're bad. You make Mayushi sad.
She leaves the development room to go sit on the couch, wanting no farther part in this. Honestly, good for her. Daru translates the English in the emails using translation software, so the translation is pretty rough, but they try their best.
Hi, Paul!
That acting's completely unnecessary.
In a nutshell, the email mentions that the LHC has been in operation for 9 years, which, wait a moment, CERN has stated publicly that the LHC has only been working since 2009, 1 year ago. The email also mentions a certain Robert Zemeckis, almost like Robert Zemeckis, the director of the Back to the Future movies. You know, movies specifically about time travel. That phrase is never used specifically, but there are a lot of mentions of something called the Z program. Daru finds a file that looks like a report for that very same project and translates that one as well. And they confirm that CERN is indeed using the LHC to generate mini black holes.
What does it say next?
Results error. Human is dead. Mismatch. For details, consult Jellyman's report number 14.
The guys are a little stunned. It takes them a moment to process that over the course of their experiments, CERN has been sacrificing human lives.
This isn't a joke anymore. Something very serious is going on here. Maybe we really are in too deep. And what if we are? I'm not afraid. I'm not. After all, I am the insane mad scientist, Oin Kiyoma. We can't stop now.
They try to find this Jellyman's report, but it's not in Jack's email, so at the moment, we've hit a slight wall. After he takes a nap, Daru is going to set to work scanning everything they've got, but before he passes out, he mentions something to Okabe. Apparently, there's another strange database on the network. It was buggy, full of some code that he doesn't recognize. Okay, never mind. Daru still hasn't taken a nap, and he works for a further hour trying to get them into that database, but alas, to no avail.
A program unlike anything he's seen.
Something, speaking of devil, something, look, John Titor emailed him back! And this is what gets Okabe's head turning.
Daru, I think I know how we can read that program.
He points his phone at the computer screen, snaps a pic, and sends it to Titor, asking if he recognizes it.
Where did you find that? That's written in a proprietary IBM programming language used prior to 1975. You can only decipher it with an IBM 5100.
Of course, it was just as Suzu has said. So as it turns out, they're going to need that IBM 5100 after all. Okabe tries to assemble the troops, but Mayuri won't get off the couch.
It doesn't matter whether you can hear or not. This meeting concerns the fate of the future gadget laboratory. Nay, the fate of mankind. So I wanted to feel more secretive, like we're scheming or something.
Mayushi won't participate in your evil schemes.
Well, I can't have everything my way.
So he lays out the plan that, after he finally has a fucking nap, Dara will continue tackling the information they do have access to from CERN, and Okabe and Mayuri will look into finding that IBN 5100.
I can't. I have to make costumes, and I have work, too.
Okay, so I guess Okabe's going it alone. This will surely end wonderfully. Before he takes off, he runs into Suzuha outside the lab, pulling up on her bike.
Bicycles are fun, aren't they? I'd never ridden one before coming here. I had ridden motorcycles before, though.
Geez, what kind of future are you from? Okabe tries to ask her about the IBN, but she doesn't seem to know anything at the moment, and Tennouji interrupts them. He bullies both of them, Okabe for the usual, Suzuha for being late, and calls her a kid.
I'm not a kid! I'm a warrior!
I like the look in your eyes, you part-time warrior. They shine with the radiance of the beast unseen in modern men. Never forget those eyes of yours, and you shall surely change class from part-time warrior to true warrior.
And there's another nickname. Suzuha has to start work, so she waves goodbye, but before Okabe starts walking, Mayuri calls out to him. She hasn't changed her mind, but she's going to get lunch, so they start walking together. They talk a little about the beef bowl place Mayuri's planning on heading to, but suddenly, Mayuri is gone.
Here we go again.
Mayuri has stopped walking and is simply staring up at the sky, reaching her hand up towards it in a move Okabe has dubbed Stardust Handshake. She does this because she feels she can reach the stars.
It's too early for stars, Mayuri.
Did you know? Even during the day, the stars are still up there.
Of course, Okabe has grand plans for tracking down the IBN, but he has no idea where to start. He decides to contact Moeka, but of course she's being really weird about it.
I don't like talking on the phone, so let's exchange emails instead. Moeka.
Give me your phone number, along with any information you have on the IBN 5100.
Throughout the following scene, Moeka continues to message him, but it turns out she really doesn't know anything and she's pretty useless. Meanwhile, Okabe happens to pass by Radicon again, no change there, I'm afraid, where he runs into someone unexpected.
Well, if it isn't my assistant. What are you doing here?
Hey, when did I become your assistant? This scene goes on forever. Holy shit, these two talk a lot. They bicker about names, they bicker about their philosophies of science. I love them so much, please can they just make out already? But finally he gets around to asking her why she bolted from the lab at the mention of time machines. The day you decide to research time travel is the day you're out of a job.
How can you be so certain?
Because that's what happened to my father. My father, a physicist, loved time machines. He was so fascinated by Wells's The Time Machine that he seriously studied time travel. But because of his obsession, he was practically exiled from the scientific community. I will never get involved with time travel research. Okabe is worried things are getting a little heated and decides to calm her down. But then, she apologizes first.
Don't worry about it. I wanted to test your character, so I made you angry on purpose.
He tells her that even if she never comes back, Lab Mem number 004 will be retired forever. He tries to leave dramatically, but she pulls him back to ask him why he thought she'd been stabbed. He claims it was just a hallucination. No more hallucinating about me, okay? Dying isn't fun, even if it's in someone else's head. Now she tries to leave, and Okabe pulls her back in revenge. He asks her if she knows anything about the IBN 5100. She doesn't, but his interest in it immediately piques her curiosity, especially once he mentions the involvement of CERN. But he leaves her guessing and moves on. The next day, Okabe decides to hit up what's left of Akiba's computer shops. Akihabara used to be known for its electronic stores before Moe culture claimed it as its own. No luck there, unfortunately. As he's browsing around, he gets a call from Mayuri. It's very blink and you'll miss it, as you have 2 lines of dialogue to respond to her. If you do, you get a whole extra scene where you attend the aforementioned Ferris Cup, and Ferris absolutely demolishes him at Rhinet. But this video is going to be long enough as it is, so moving on. Assuming we don't respond to Mayuri's call, Okabe heads out of the store and runs into Moeka, sitting alone on a street corner. Of course, Okabe doesn't remember her actual name, so he just points at her and shouts, "Finger!" like a lunatic. However, shocker, she doesn't actually recognize him either. It isn't until he tells her he's the one helping her find the IBN that she remembers him. It doesn't help that she's barely looked up from her phone this whole time.
Okabe-kun sent email?
Hi, Okabe-kun. Fancy meeting you here, Moeka.
Throughout this conversation and throughout the whole of her dialogue, she will be splicing in messages instead of just talking. This infuriates Okabe and also me as the person who has to juggle flipping between two text documents to follow this conversation. She explains that speaking is too hard, and Okabe sighs and gets them 2 canned coffees before sitting down next to her.
I'm weird, aren't I?
You have nothing to be ashamed of. In this world, there exists something called absolutely eternal truth. It's a wall, immovable no matter how much you struggle. But never forget this one thing. You hold within your heart your own Steins Gate. As long as you have yours, you may follow any path without losing your way, just as I follow mine.
It's a bunch of gobbledygook again, but in a way, he might just make a little sense. It seems Moeka understands him at the very least. She opens up a little and they start talking about the IBN. It turns out that in the last 2 months of investigating, she's talked to a total of 4 people, including Okabe. Yeesh, she is really terrible at her job.
I honestly don't know where to turn. I've tried everything, Moeka.
Okabe assures her he has a network of contacts, even though he's just as lost as she is. They part ways, and Okabe remembers that he got a phone call from Mayuri earlier. He calls her back, but she just says to call Daru. Daru says that Ferris apparently knows something about the IBN. In fact, up until a few years ago, she owned it, and she donated it to a shrine. An odd choice, but alright. There's 2 different shrines in Akiba, and one of them is run by Luka's dad. But on the way, he gets another phone call, and this time we're actually going to answer it. At first, there's no response, and Okabe's first instinct is that it is, of course, an organization agent, but then she acts confused.
No, it's Makise.
Makise? Who? Sorry, but I don't remember. Tell me where we met. Paris? Or London? Oh, my assistant!
Not your assistant, Makise Kurisu.
If you don't say Christina, then I have no way of knowing it's you.
Oh, Okabe. Never change. Anyway, turns out that Daru gave her his number, and she wants to know where he is right now. He tells her, and by the time he gets to Yanagibayashi Shrine, Kurisu is waiting there for him. Turns out his intimations about the IBN 5100 piqued her curiosity yesterday, and she really wants to know what's up with that. So here she is, and just in time to pick it up. Luka comes to greet them. There's a whole bit about introducing Kurisu, as there always is when it comes to these two, and Okabe gets Luka to get his father. While we're waiting for him, I know I complained earlier about the mechanics of introducing all the characters, but then Hayashi flip-flops around to doing something great again. An ongoing trend. The way that all the characters are woven into finding the IBN is so ingenious. Okabe ends up going from one to the other, starting with Suzuha, who is the one that leads into the realization that he needs to get his mitts on it, to Moeka, who initially wanted it but ends up pretty useless, to Ferris, who used to have it, to Luka, who now has it. The latter two feel like a bit of a coincidence. Oh, these important characters just so happen to have the IBN. But in this case, it gets a pass because these end up being the results of time travel shenanigans.
Hurry, Dad, hurry! The future of mankind is at stake!
Anyway, here comes Luka's dad. He seems like an incredibly kind man. Okabe asks if the IBN is here. He of course confirms it and simply lets Okabe borrow it. Just like that. Apparently the person who gave it to him did on the one stipulation that if a young man is ever desperate for it, he'd be allowed to borrow the device. Like I said, time travel shenanigans. Anyway, Luka's dad leaves the kids to it, but there's one problem. The IBN is fucking heavy, and the pushcart that the shrine has is broken. However, 2 people might be able to carry it alright. But I refuse. Okabe is caught off guard because she just said a line from an anime, one that is commonly used by @channelers. Kurisu refuses to lift the box and carry it back to the lab. Okabe makes a big stink about carrying it himself and turns subtly to Luka.
Then I will...
No, Lukako, I shouldn't make you help me. I can manage by myself.
But we're friends, Okabe-san. I want to help you.
Then, me too.
Please, go ahead. Don't you know, Christina? This is what you call a Japanese gag. Thanks for the backup, Lukako. Now that that's settled, my assistant will help me carry the computer, so you don't have to help. Thanks for the offer.
And of course, Kurisu and Okabe bicker all the way home. There's also an alternate version of this scene if you don't pick up the phone. In this version, Kurisu is not at the shrine. She's back at the lab, and it is Luka who helps Okabe carry the IBN. The anime went for the version with Kurisu, and I have to agree with them. Any more time we can get with Okabe and Kurisu on screen together is time well spent. The two make it back to the lab after dark, only to be greeted by Suzuha. Everything's all hunky-dory until, that is, she sees Kurisu's face.
Makise Kurisu?
What is it? Have I done something to you?
She walks off. Okay. Weird. We don't get too long to think about it though, because just then Mayuri and Daru show up to help them get the IBN back up to the lab. Mayuri's curfew is up, so she has to take off, but Kurisu sticks around. Even though they've got the IBN, they agree that since it's going to take a while for Daru to figure out how to use it, he should continue working on getting the admin's password for the moment. He does so, and after explaining to her how CERN and the IBN is related, Kurisu and Okabe take another look at the phone wave, name subject to change. Once again, the microwave functions normally. It's very strange. Ever since the discharge phenomenon, they haven't had a single success.
Here we should think under the assumptions of time travel theory.
No, it's not good to start thinking from the conclusion.
We've already had several successful experiments, you can't deny that.
I'm not especially concerned whether this thing is a time machine or not. To begin with, it's physically impossible for this tiny little microwave to produce energy equivalent to the Big Bang. Kurisu can't understand what changed, and Okabe wonders if it's the specific observer, bringing up the quantum theory that the observer is an important part of the experiment. We'll see more as we continue into it, but my favorite part of their dynamic is, while Okabe is obviously not a genius like Kurisu is, he never really has much trouble keeping up with her. Even if he's a goddamn idiot, he's still a really smart guy who, in any other circumstances, usually the smartest man in the room. Were it not for Kurisu. However, it is at that moment that Kurisu's stomach rumbles, and they elect to take a break for her to steal some of their cup noodles.
There's soy sauce flavor and chicken flavor.
Chicken. Also, do you have a fork? After she's done, the two continue to sort through their technical problems. Okabe is focusing on the microwave itself, while Kurisu is looking for any external factors like the AC adapter. It's getting pretty late though, and Okabe wonders why she hasn't gone home yet. He asks her if she should contact her family. No need. I haven't seen my father in 7 years. My mother is in America. I'm living in a hotel right now. Understand? Her hotel is within walking distance, so it's not a big deal. Okabe is more interested in the father situation.
Oh, I know. Your father was a hero, but then he fell to evil, became supreme commander of the empire, and now he wears a black mask and cape and goes right? And in the future, you two are destined to fight and—
Don't make fun of people's family issues like that. You're trampling on my heart. Oh shit. He really did it now. He immediately wonders if he should apologize. Again, another surprising factor about Okabe that will become more apparent later on is that even though he comes off as a space cadet who lives in his own little world, it is very clearly a front. He is very quick to observe people's emotions. He understands immediately that he's gone too far and should apologize, even if he's planning on doing it in character. Unfortunately, he doesn't get a chance, as Daru has chosen that exact moment to find the password. The issue is dropped, and even if it looks like Kurisu's still a little mad, the two head back over to the computer to see what they've got. Daru runs a search on the Z program and the Jellyman's report, and ding ding ding, we've got a winner. Daru finds a very old scan of a document.
The program began in 1973.
2 years before the IBN 5100 hit the market. It makes sense how they're related. Daru can't translate the text this time though, as the file is a JPEG. Who the fuck saves important documents as a JPEG? Jesus Christ! However, it looks like they don't have to. CERN's purpose heading into the 21st century shall be to establish control over space and time, thereby to enable the destruction of extant history and the creation of an everlasting utopia ruled by the committee that encompasses the entirety of past and future events. Hey! What the fuck? That's exactly like the future John Titor described. The purpose of the Z program is to perform time-space displacement experiments by means of high-energy proton collisions.
In other words, time travel experiments.
Daru points out another strange mention. The document discusses something called the Committee of 300. Turns out they're a pretty well-known conspiracy that's meant to be controlling the world from the shadows. Okabe makes a big speech about how they mean to obtain godhood, and Kurisu gets caught up in his shit again.
Forget about him, Makise. Please keep reading. I'm tired of listening to conspiracy theories. I'm more interested in the Z program than in your delusions.
Kurisu goes on to read about the steps they've taken to make their project a reality. Of course, building the LHC was one, implementation of lifter technology is the second, whatever that means. Then they move on to experimentation on animals, and finally, Stage 4, human experimentation. And it is at this moment that Okabe realizes this isn't a game anymore. Here is concrete proof that CERN has been sacrificing humans for their time travel research.
I ask myself, is this really okay? Are you sure? There's no turning back. True. But can I live with myself if I ignore this conspiracy?
He instructs Daru to bring up the Jellyman's report, but before he does, he tells Kurisu she should leave and return to her normal life. Thanks for your concern, but I'm not leaving. We need to expose this truth to the world.
This isn't a game. I'm not joking here. You won't regret this?
I won't. He offers the same courtesy to Daru.
Well, I am a super hacker, and with my skills, they'll never know we were there.
Okabe comforts himself with the fact that at least Mayuri's not here. And they open the document. Kurisu begins to read. Jellyman's Report 10. Subject, James McCarthy, age 31, American. Z program, stage 4, date of experimentation, 2005-01-28, time 1300 hours and 5 minutes. Results, error. Human is dead. Mismatch. It is believed that due to infinite compression by supergravity, the subject could not endure passage through the singularity inside the Kerr black hole. On April 3rd, 1921, an unidentified man was discovered dead in an alley off Union Square, New York. The right half of his body was embedded in a nearby wall. The man's body was completely jellified. As it turns out, there are a total of 14 jelly men, the oldest dating back to the very early 2000s. So, yeah, this is really not great. Also, it looks like the gang have stumbled upon a time machine in their microwave, so that's pretty cool. And they might be further along than CERN is. Based on the randomness of their destination, CERN still doesn't have much control, nor will they have a truly successful run for another 20 years. Also, CERN is using something called Kerr black holes to make their time travel work, which is exactly what John Titor claimed to be using. This is why stuff comes out jellified. The black hole is breaking them down at a molecular level. They find a document on the theory behind their time travel, and after a minute to read it, Kurisu tries to explain. But Daru is a bit based and moe-pilled, so he asks her to explain using cute girls. Fine. Say there are two cute girls, Mike-chan and Crow-chan. By feeding Mike-chan and Crow-chan electrons, you can make them do whatever you want.
Electric shock torture? What eroge is this?
So you force them to rotate at an extremely high velocity, and then, theoretically, Mike-chan and Crow-chan transform into magical girl Ring Singularity. The Ring Singularity is a spinning black hole. All of this is to say that CERN has figured out how to make a black hole that spins, which would destroy the black hole's event horizon, meaning you could see inside to the place where time and space switch places. She goes into a lot more detail, but instead of trying to explain it all, I'm going to talk about it from a narrative perspective. The science adventure series is pretty unique in that it seems, to my untrained eyes at least, to be based off of real science. Real science that it explains to its viewers in excruciating detail. Obviously, there's a point where the science has to break down for the plot to happen. If it were pure science, we would have actual time machines by now. However, to the layman, such as myself, it's pretty impossible to tell where the real science ends and the fiction begins. Most importantly, Hayashi never talks down to his viewers. You are treated in this moment as if you were part of this team and you are just as smart as these actual geniuses. I feel like I learned something reading Steins Gate, but it didn't feel like it was trying to teach me something, if that makes any sense. It just understands that in order to enjoy its plot, its viewers are going to need to know a little science that they probably don't, so it tries to catch you up to speed in fun ways, like explaining it with cute girls. Basically, what Kurisu's saying all boils down to is that if you can see inside a black hole, you could hypothetically use it to time travel, since it becomes possible to travel through time while staying frozen in space inside of one. The one thing that's currently a mystery is how they're injecting electrons into the black hole. It seems they're using something called a lifter, which appears to be some sort of anti-gravity tech. They find a YouTube video and it turns out it's actually something that's pretty easy to build if you know what you're doing. The other thing is how they transport you to the right space. The Earth moves unbelievably fast, so if you travel through time but not through space, you'd end up in the middle of, well, space, and quickly suffocate. Kurisu, curious, goes back to reading documents, and Okabe and Daru have to rely on her, considering she's the only one who knows English. Before too long, dawn breaks. At some point, Daru fell asleep, but Kurisu and Okabe are still awake, and each on like their 5th cup of coffee. Since Okabe is kind of just waiting for more info, he turns on the TV. There's news about the satellite. Oh, wait, sorry. A guy from NASA is claiming that it's not a satellite at all. So there's that.
Good morning. Oh, wait, should I say good afternoon? Ooh, the air in here is so thick.
She opens the window, which wakes Daru up, and Okabe thinks this is the perfect time for a round table conference. Obviously, everyone else is confused. There isn't even a real round table.
Not physically, however, it exists in the hearts of all lab mems.
Is there one in Mayushi too?
Of course there is.
They catch Mayuri up on everything they've discovered. She still doesn't like that they did a bad thing, but they explain to her that CERN is literally attempting to take over the world and has already sacrificed a bunch of people to do it, and she gets relatively on board. Kurisu goes over what she learned from the CERN documents about their 2 big problems, the lifter and the whole space thing, and then Okabe asks if anything she's learned could help the development of the phone wave. There are too many things we don't know about the phone wave. Unlike the LHC, this thing wasn't made for time travel.
It was made to warm Mayushi's chicken.
Also, since they're sending data instead of people, the process they're using is probably a little different. It is then that Okabe interrupts by saying they should name the phenomenon so it's easier to say, and all the lab mems have their suggestions.
Nostalgia Drive.
It's an email that regresses through time, so how about retro mail?
I vote the male who leapt through time.
How about Back to the Mail? I took a movie title and changed a word to mail.
No one can agree until Daru suggests DeLorean mail along the same lines as Mayuri, Kurisu shortens it to D-mail, and everyone decides to move on. One problem, they can't start studying the D-mail if they can't get it to happen again, which up until this point, they haven't. But Okabe's been thinking about that issue.
Recall the conditions when it occurred, Christina. We experimented through the night with no results, but there's one variable we overlooked. The simplest, most definitive variable of all. That is, the time of the occurrence.
Both times they've successfully sent a D-mail, it was between the hours of about noon and 6, and every time they didn't, it was outside of that. Kurisu bolts into the back room, shoves a banana in the microwave. Sorry, Mayuri-san, I'll go buy you some new bananas later, and uses the phone wave, and my god, we have a winner. They first produce one piping hot gel-bana, and then send a successful D-mail a minute later. One thing they're noticing now is that even though Kurisu only sent one email, it arrived 5 days earlier, split into 2. Plus, how can they control when the D-mail arrives? They get into position and get set up to find out. After a couple of hours, Daru and Okabe decide to run to the convenience store while Kurisu keeps at it. On their way back, they run into the Brontu Workshop's part-time warrior.
Sup? What shenanigans are you up to this early in the morning?
Shenanigans? This girl has a thing for unusual words.
It's not that unusual, shut up. While they're talking, Suzuo asks if Kurisu is here as well, and Okabe asks her what's up with her and Kurisu. Apparently they've never met, so what gives?
Did she do something to you?
Not to me.
Okabe offers to try to talk things out with her, but for whatever reason, Suzuo gets a little upset and tries to change the subject. It seems that Okabe is in deep shit with Tennouji because the building's been shaking all day. He tries to talk to him to smooth things over, but even though he told Daru to tell Kurisu to stop, as soon as he's done talking, the building shakes again.
Okabe, the ceiling is falling, you dumbass. Some got into my ramen. What are you gonna do about it, huh? No more shaking, or I'll raise your rent by 10,000.
He runs back up to give Kurisu an earful. I sent you an email. Didn't you get it?
One more, please.
Stop screwing around. I'm the one who has to deal with Mr. Braun.
But I gave you 5 days advance notice. Since there's no more experiments today, Kurisu wants to head back to her hotel for a shower and a nap, but first they eat lunch and discuss what they've learned. Essentially, the maximum length of a D-mail they can send is 36 half-width characters, and those get split up every 12 characters. Any message longer than that simply gets cut off. They're trying to figure out why that's the case, and the answer comes from somewhere a little unexpected.
Maybe the curved black hole. The curved black hole. The black hole's hole is too tight.
Mayushi, Say that one more time. Starting from hole.
Bro.
The hole is too tight!
Outrageous!
But actually, Kurisu chimes in that Mayuri may be right. The fact that CERN can't fully control their lifter yet might be limiting how much they can send through, which might explain the Jellymen. There's just one problem. Even CERN can't control their lifter, and right now the gang has no idea what's acting as theirs, let alone how to change how it works. They can't do any more experiments today, so they split up and Okabe sits back down on the couch.
We've built a time machine that can send emails to the past. It's like a dream, but it's real, and it's ours. As I start thinking of ways to use it, my imagination spreads out to infinity, driving the last vestiges of fear from my mind. I'm standing in absolute darkness. How long have I been here? I can't remember. I can't move. I can't feel. I can't see. The world is empty.
No, not empty. You are beyond the event horizon, where time and space switch places.
What follows is an incredibly trippy dream sequence of Okabe imagining himself within a black hole, while for some reason Kurisu's voice guides him. And here's where we're finally going to bring back all that stuff I was talking about at the beginning. You know, the stuff about Steins Gate giving you somewhat misguided impressions of what it's going to be about? It spends all this time giving you the minutiae of its science. Then it presents you with not one, but two trippy dream sequences, the next is yet to come, and on top of that, its fanbase consistently claims it's one of the most mindfucky stories they've ever experienced. All of this would leave one to believe that Steins Gate's story becomes pretty complicated, right? Well, see, here's the thing. In terms of its actual plot, the science Hayashi spends all this time telling you about doesn't really matter beyond the very basics, and this dream sequence, and the next one after this, also irrelevant. They just turn out to be dreams. Now you might be asking, what's the problem? Well, again, I'm only really setting up this argument here, so when you do see what the actual plot of Steins Gate turns out to be, you might understand a little better. Suffice it to say that the problem isn't with Steins Gate's plot at all. If I had gone into the second half of the game with different expectations, I would have been much more positive on my initial viewing of it. However, as it stood, I was at the edge of my seat waiting for a wham moment to hit that would complicate everything, and though an attempt is made at the very end to do just that, never really hit in the way I wanted it to. We'll get more into it later. Because goddamn, what is this annoying fucking noise? Oh, it's Okabe's phone. It's been ringing while he's been passed out. It's been ringing a lot, in fact. Yep, the male demon is back.
I came like you said, Okabe-kun. You promised to show me the IBN 5100, remember? Are you there? If you're there, could you open the door? I'm out front. Moeka.
It's like 9 in the morning, which even I've only been up for an hour at that point. Give the man until 10 at least. Holy guacamole. Even if he's half asleep, he invites her in, and she's really intent on seeing the IBN. Then she insists on taking pictures for a half an hour. Then she wants to borrow it. Obviously, Okabe says no, he's only borrowing it himself.
Meanie. Moeka.
He promises when he's done using it, she can negotiate with Luka's dad, and that seems to mollify her for the time being. It better, because just then Daru strolls in. He is way too confident in his otakuism, and Jesus Christ, my guy, that's a real-ass woman. But eventually they are introduced, and the subject is changed.
Oh, right. I thought up some upgrades we could make to the phone wave.
He starts talking about fucking time machines right in front of Moeka. She sends him another message. At this point, Okabe is so pissed off from her constant messages that he confronts her.
If you want to say something, then say it to my...
Sending email to the past? That's what he said. Tell me.
Instead, Okabe puts his phone to his ear and talks to his contact.
Who is that?
It doesn't concern you.
FB.
Okay, we don't know what that means, and neither does Okabe, so he elects to ignore it. He threatens her to never reveal their secret, but Daru tells her to ignore him.
Imbecile! Because of your careless tongue, she found out that the phone wave, name subject to change, is a time machine!
Time machine?
Tuturu! Good morning! Hey, Okarin! Mayushi wants to warm up some chicken before you start the time travel experiments.
So yeah, guess she's getting sworn into secrecy now and gaining a lab mem number. Okabe then calls another roundtable conference. This is the 73rd, even though just yesterday was the 66th. Now that they've determined more of the specifics of how the D-Nail works, Okabe wants to talk about more practical applications.
When I say practical applications, what I mean is changing the past.
Kurisu is obviously immediately against it. She argues that they could really fuck things up for themselves by changing the past in any way due to the butterfly effect, but Okabe assures her that according to John Titor, the many worlds theory is true, and so it shouldn't be a problem.
Besides, don't you want to prove that the phone wave named subject to change isn't a time machine? If it's not a time machine, then it can't change the past. You could prove yourself right, so why are you against it?
Oh, shut up. You hear that, chat? That means he's won. So just how is Okabe planning on measuring the past changing? He's going to make the gang win the lottery. Obviously. Again, Kurisu thinks this is ridiculous, so Okabe asks for other suggestions. Moeka's got nothing. She's been messaging him throughout this conversation, by the way. Kurisu suggests changing her hotel, which is summarily rejected.
Then how about we change my fried chicken to a different brand?
Nobody cares what brand of chicken you eat.
Okabe, stop being mean, you're breaking my heart. Eventually, everyone agrees that winning the lottery is the easiest way to measure if they've changed the past, but they also agree to only win the third prize as to not draw too much attention to themselves. Also, because Okabe is a little bitch. Moeka is given the job of coming up with the contents of the D-Nail. She types in the numbers from last week's Lotto 6, making sure to change one of the numbers.
Buy Lotto 6. Sure to win.
It sounds a little sketchy, but what can you do? This set up the phone wave, and after being genuinely nervous about it, Okabe sends the email.
Okarin? Are you okay?
Okabe is not okay. Something just happened, and we have no idea what it was. He looks down at his phone, and there's no sent message text. The phone wave itself is also silent. Worst of all, his friends are sitting in different places than they were before.
This is wrong.
Mayuri is concerned because she saw him suddenly run over to the phone wave with his phone out, and everyone is incredibly confused about what he is talking about when he starts rambling about winning the Lotto 6.
Holy crap, that's brilliant, man! We can use D-mails to make ourselves billionaires! I could buy all of the computer parts I want and go to May Queen for every meal of the day! I am so pumped up!
Okabe is confused, and will continue to be confused for far too long, but I think we can piece together what this means. Clearly, he didn't win the Lotto 6 after all. However, somehow the past has changed.
Hello? Pardon the sudden intrusion.
Even though he is not in the mood for visitors at the moment, Luka approaches Okabe, saying he has something to apologize for. In his hand is a Lotto 6 ticket.
I'm really sorry, Kiyoma-san. Even though you told me exactly what to do, I filled one of the numbers in wrong.
So, yeah, Okabe has indeed changed the past, but it looks like for some reason no one else remembers it. They are all thoroughly surprised by Luka's lottery purchase. Okabe checks his phone, and of course, though he received the message about the ticket 5 days ago, he never sent it. He stumbles outside to get some air, and of course out there he runs into Suzuha polishing her bike. Since he looks pretty out of it, she checks to see if he's been brainwashed.
You're okay. You haven't been brainwashed. When you're brainwashed, they usually put a chip on the inside of your lower eyelid.
Hayashi, you are really not being clever right now.
Miss Part-Timer, what's brainwatching?
Suzuha is not the only one out there, however. This is Nai, Tennouji's daughter. She's a little bit scared of Okabe. As she should be. He's a bit scary. Just then, the voices of the lab mems drift down from the window, and Okabe realizes that Suzuha has most likely heard everything. And according to her, there was only one instance of shaking today. She suggests, a little pointedly, that Okabe try to get in touch with Titor again. But just then, Tennouji shows up and Suzuha has to run back inside, though he yells at her for slacking off anyway. Hopefully, Titor can help explain all the weirdness that Okabe's been going through, which appears to definitely have something to do with time travel. He dismisses the rest of the lab mems and Lukako, but Kurisu elects to stay.
Ah, I get it. You'd be lonely in your hotel room, but you have no friends, so you want me, the great Hoin Kyoma, to look after you. Isn't that right, you spoiled celeb Sev?
Kurisu calls him out on being the one who's acting gloomy and tells him that he can talk to her if he wants, even though she seems a little mocking about it. She sits next to him on the couch reading a technical book while he sends his email to Titor. While he waits, he considers telling her about the D-mail, but Daru interrupts his thoughts with a phone call. Once again, you can choose to pick up the phone or not. If you do, you get a humorous conversation about Daru being at May Queen but unable to eat because he left his wallet at the lab. If you don't, Okabe actually does tell Kurisu about his hypothesis, but she thinks that it should be impossible for him to remember the old timeline. She mocks him again, getting her revenge.
Despite what you may think, I actually respect you.
That's rich. You don't even say my name right.
I'm sorry about that.
Well, that's unexpected. You actually apologized.
I do apologize, but I can't help it. For my brain has recorded you as my assistant, Christina, and I cannot correct it.
Just then, Taiter's email arrives. Kurisu realizes who he's messaging and thinks it's ridiculous that he actually believes him. Okabe explains to Taiter about their experiment, and Taiter thinks that what he did may have changed divergence. Everything that Okabe describes seems much more in the realm of possibility for him, except for one thing.
The one thing I don't understand is how you kept your memories of the previous world line. I've confirmed the divergence is currently 0.571015%. I cannot tell you what the value was before you changed the past. This is because I, like your friends, have no memories of the world line before you changed the past.
Apparently, this is something CERN has never had to work out because they only ever attempted physical time travel. But since Okabe didn't actually travel through time himself, Taiter can't help him. But he does have some sort of way to measure divergence. It's a meter, and what the measurement is calculating is how far away your timeline is from the attractor field.
Put simply, attractor fields are the focal points of world line convergence. There's no real point in making small changes to a world line. Due to convergence, small changes do not have a lasting influence. Humans who can observe convergence are exceedingly rare. You might be the one who can guide us to a world line beyond 1% convergence, across the wall that divides attractor fields.
The wall? The wall past the dystopian future that Taiter is from. If they can't break through that 1% divergence, then that future is set in stone for this world. But with someone who can observe the changes in divergence.
You may be the one who can make that possible. Kyoma, I want you to be the Messiah.
John Taiter's a fraud. Me? The Messiah? Ludicrous. To think that I would save humanity. I am no Messiah. I'm the insane mad scientist Hoin Kyoma, who has walked through fire and bathed in an ocean of blood to escape the clutches of the organization.
At this point, I think we know enough about Okabe to realize that he is actually freaking out right now and just using his persona to cover for it. We're gonna get so much deeper of that concept's asshole that we'll be seeing out its mouth in the next video, don't you worry. Kurisu and Daru are back and comment that Okabe is acting particularly strange today, before Okabe insists on continuing the experiments. He wants to see if anyone else can use the power of reading Steiner, as he's dubbed it, to remember the changes to the past. After explaining to them what happened, Kurisu almost leaves, still a little upset about the blatant disregard for the timeline, which leaves Daru as the test subject, and he's all set to go. What Daru really wants is to have beaten Ferris the other day at the Rhinette tournament so he could eat her home cooking.
I remember every move Ferris Tan made. It'll be easy for me to take her from behind. Aren't I a genius?
Kurisu pulls Okabe aside to ask about his memory. Okabe posits that it's probably only the person who receives the mail who remembers things, and then tells her that after Daru, she's next. But Kurisu blatantly refuses. Changing the past feels like cheating. I may only have 18 years of life experience, but I don't want to change any of those memories. I don't want to deny who I've been. Because even my failures are a part of who I am today. Clearly, she's already thought a lot about this. Daru has his message ready. It is nonsense to both Okabe and us, but after they send the D-mail...
Did the past change?
It seems like they all remember, and they try calling Mayuri to see if he did in fact beat Ferris. Yeah, she still beat him in like 5 seconds. The world line doesn't seem to have changed since the outcome of the match was entirely the same. Daru wants to try again, but it looks like it's too late in the evening. No discharge from the phone wave, nothing. Kurisu ponders what exactly could be acting as the lifter and posits that it must be some sort of outside source, considering that the world would have imploded if everyone could just make a black hole in their microwave before exiting stage left. The next morning, everyone shows up one at a time. Suzuha and Kurisu have a mini confrontation in front of the CRT shop. Good times. Things are looking favorable with the experiments today, although Daru's second D-mill still fails to win him Ferris's home cooking. And since Kurisu refuses, that means it's Mayuri's turn. She can't come up with anything good to send, so Okabe suggests she changes the ramen she's eating to Oden. Kurisu thinks this is ridiculous, but Mayuri disagrees.
When I went to the vending machine today, I spent 10 minutes wondering if I should get canned Oden or canned ramen. It was really hard.
So Mayuri goes to send herself the message, but sending it back an hour means the phone wave only runs for 1 second, meaning that there's not enough time for the discharge to occur, let alone for Mayuri to send her message. With no more bright ideas, Okabe realizes that they might have to look outside the lab for test subjects. He goes out for some coffee, and just as he's pondering the dilemma, he gets a text. Or rather, several texts. It's Moeka again. She wants to send a D-mail. Genuinely perfect timing. Though Okabe hesitates, he's a lot more anxious about all of this than he's letting on. He responds to her message and heads back to the lab.
Thank you.
I know it's selfish, but I really need to send a D-mail. Moeka.
I don't think you're selfish. In fact, I'm grateful for your offer.
They head inside, and nobody objects in allowing Moeka to send a D-mail. There's one problem, though. Moeka wants to keep the contents of her mail a secret. Kurisu sides with Okabe. They need accurate data in order to figure out how the phone wave works, while Mayuri is Team Moeka.
But girls have lots of secrets, you know. You shouldn't ask her to tell her secrets, Okarin. That's perverted.
But eventually, cooler heads prevail. Simply put, since they're unsure about how the mails will actually affect the timeline, they need to know what they originally said. Moeka thinks for a moment, then has an idea.
About 4 days ago, I bought a new phone. But now that I've tried it, I think I should have stayed with the old one.
They agree to the proposition, Moeka constructs her message, and they make that shit happen. And once again, after a fit of nausea, something has changed. The phone wave isn't running, and once more, Moeka is nowhere to be found. Not only that, but unlike last time, no one in the lab knows who she is at all.
So I did erase Moeka's existence. No, that can't be. I won't accept that I killed her.
Alas, his hypothesis about the sender being the memory retainer seems to be incorrect. Reading Steiner seems real because once again, Okabe is the only one who remembers anything. Okabe is kind of freaking out, and so he shoots Moeka an email, and after ranting about paradoxes and the rest of the lab trying to calm him down, she responds. She's fine, just very busy. No wonder they don't know who she is. Changing her phone back for some reason made her too busy to come by the lab. The lab mems, specifically Kurisu, question whether reading Steiner actually exists or not, and Okabe does what an Okabe does best.
My left eye! Reading Steiner! It aches!
Okarin, are you okay?
No, Mayuri. Stay away. I don't want to hurt you. I'm okay. This aching is normal. It'll end soon. As long as I have this magic eye, the organization will keep coming after me. It's the power to see across time and space, but at the same time, it's a double-edged sword.
Deflect, deflect, deflect! From Kurisu, from the rest of the lab, and most importantly, from himself. Later on, Okabe sits on a bench outside the CRT store. Mayuri and Kurisu come down and say their goodbyes as they head to their respective residences, but Mayuri stays behind a minute, doing her Stardust handshake. Tonight, a shooting star flies past at just the right time. This seems to remind her of something.
Remember back in elementary school? You got a terrible fever and stayed in bed for a month?
This apparently happened 10 years ago, and Okabe even missed the turning over of the millennium because of it.
Back then, I was so afraid you might die. So, Granny and I prayed to the sky together. Don't die, Okarin. And then, on New Year's Eve, right before midnight, a shooting star went pew across the sky. Just like now. If you repeat your wish 3 times before a shooting star disappears, your wish will come true. Did you know that? It was hard, but Mayushi repeated her wish 3 times. The next day, on New Year's, your fever went down, and you woke up. So basically, Mayushi saved your life.
But the weirdest part is that afterward, Okabe described the experience exactly like how he feels whenever the world line shifts.
So that's the choice of Steins Gate. I really was born with this power. No wonder John Titor thinks I'm the Messiah. My maniacal laughter echoes into the night.
Deflect, deflect, deflect. Don't think about it too hard. This is definitely not going to come back to bite you in the ass later. Don't worry about it. The next day, the lab gets an unexpected visitor. Luka has come to try on one of Mayuri's cosplays, largely against his will. It is, of course, for a female character and has the tiniest skirt imaginable. After a few minutes and much protesting, Luka emerges from the changing room.
It's so embarrassing. I'm a guy. I shouldn't be dressed like this.
You know what they say? Cuteness is justice.
I don't know what you mean.
Okabe is mortified, but also oddly fascinated. He is clearly attracted to Luka in this outfit, but can't bring himself to think it. Just remember, Okabe.
But he's a guy.
Kurisu comes in late and chastises the group for ganging up on an innocent girl. She still doesn't know that Luka is a guy. Things are getting awkward when Kurisu says he looks cute and gets confused by his somewhat negative reaction, so Okabe tries to change the subject.
Lukako, tell us your wish. Your desires can become reality. Now that you too have joined the otaku world, you need conceal your deepest desires no longer! Speak your wish with a true ear, and by the chaos that rules Akihabara, Steins Gate shall grant it.
My wish? Well, if I tell you, promise not to laugh? I want to be a girl. I don't really like how I look. I always thought that if I were a girl, I could be a little more confident.
Obviously, now they have to clear up the confusion with Kurisu. There's like a whole 10-minute bit about it, but eventually they get back to the point. Okabe asks if Luka is really serious about this because this is a pretty life-changing wish.
You know those stories where a guy magically turns into a girl overnight? Sometimes I wish that would happen to me. That's stupid, isn't it?
The entire lab is entranced by the power of orientation confusing moe, and that reminds Kurisu of an old saying, that if you eat a lot of meat when you're pregnant, you'll have a boy, and a lot of vegetables will give you a girl. Even if it sounds like an old wives' tale, this gives them an idea. Send a message to Luka's mom in the past to eat a lot of veggies. But there's a question. If Luka's sex does change, then his whole life would probably be different. That's a pretty big deal. Luka agrees to take responsibility, and as his friend, Okabe also asks Mayuri's opinion.
If Luka-kun becomes a girl, then I've gotta call her Luka-chan. Will Luka-chan wear Mayushi's costumes?
Well, that's another story.
Then that settles it! Lukako, I appoint you Lab Mem 006.
Luka admits that he always wanted to be a lab mem, and they go about setting up the phone wave. But there's just one more problem. Cell phones didn't really exist before Luka was born, meaning that they have no way to get in touch with his mom. But Okabe gets another brilliant idea. Maybe, just maybe, they could send a message to a pager. By the way, you may have noticed there's kind of an elephant in the room when it comes to Luka, a very gender-confused elephant. I'm going to come back to this later, but there's a couple more scenes that need to play out first. Anyway, Luka comes back the next day with the news that his mom did indeed possess a pager, so they can go ahead with the experiment. There's a whole sequence describing how they have to convert characters into numbers to send this message, but I'm not going through the whole thing, so we're moving on. They send the message, "Eat veg for healthy kid," and set the microwave time to 154,152 seconds.
It should arrive around January 1st, 1993. The margin of error is around 1 to 3 days, I guess. Leap year calculation's a pain, so I ignored it.
Spoken like a true scientist there, Okabe. Luka sends his message, and once again the nausea, and once again, things are slightly different. But not as much as last time.
Okabe-san, could you please not look at me like that?
It seems that literally nothing is different, but he can't really just ask if he's a girl now, can he? He comes to the conclusion that something else must have changed, but he's unsure of what. Okabe needs to come up with a better way to determine the effects of the D-mails. He heads off to May Queen plus Nyan Nyan to think, but just kind of ends up chilling with Daru.
Daru, what do you think about D-mail?
It's cool, but it's kind of lame at the same time. I couldn't use it to win my Right-Net match against Ferriston.
Unfortunately, they're speaking far too loudly, and a certain cat girl maid happens to overhear them. Okabe doesn't want to tell her, so she switches her target.
Daranyan, tell Varys.
We've built an amazing machine that can send emails to the past. I did most of the work, of course.
Ferris confesses that she dreams of going on a voyage through time, and Daru promises to take her. You can practically see the fantasy constructing itself in his noggin.
By the way, it's been bugging me, but what is time anyway, nya? Time is often compared to a river, nya, flowing from past to future. If time is a river, then where is the present, nya? Is it a point? Is it a line? Where does the present begin and end, nya?
This has been Philosophy with your local catgirl maid. They continue to discuss the intricacies of how we perceive the concept of time before Ferris mentions that she'd just love to use the time machine herself, and Daru is putty in her hands. Welp, I guess there's a new lab mem incoming. For the moment, however, Okabe heads back to the lab, only to be confronted with Kurisu sitting on a bench in front of said lab, in the middle of a phone call. What? You called me all the way to Japan, and now you... I knew it. You never wanted to see me, did you? Unfortunately, just then she sees Okabe and turns and walks away. Okabe wonders who the hell could make the bullheaded Christina cry like that. He writes off boyfriend, but maybe... Is it her father whom she hasn't seen in 7 years? Okabe heads back up to the lab, only for Kurisu to join him a few minutes later. I wasn't crying or anything, okay?
No, you were definitely crying.
Don't be ridiculous. Where's your proof?
Your eyes are red. You're not being very logical, Christina.
She still insists that she wasn't crying, while actively sniffling, and sits on the couch while she composes herself. Okabe realizes that they can't get any science done if his assistant is a wreck, which is the best reason to try to comfort her, but he goes to do just that.
Listen. You don't have to talk, just listen. If there's something troubling you, I'll do everything in my power to help. And it's not just me. I'm sure I speak for Mayuri and Daru as well. Because you're important to us. You're our beloved friend.
He tells her that he's here to listen to her when she's ready to tell him what's wrong, and she agrees. You know what? Under it all, Okabe might not be such a terrible...
Now that my plan has succeeded, her petty private matters shall no longer be an impediment to our science. With this, Kurisu's loyalty is assured. Soon the world will tremble before us.
Okay, you know what? Never mind. There's also an alternate scene where you meet up with Mayuri in the lab instead, but I only found out about this because of the script files, and I genuinely have no idea how you get it. Anyway, the next day, the core lab mems meet up again. Okabe has called them together to discuss the problem of the D-mail's unreliability. Basically, he wants to try to apply their D-mail technology to physical time travel. Kurisu thinks this idea is ridiculous, and he should be happy studying what he's got. She even proffers that they should bring it to a real lab so real scientists can study it. However, there's one problem. These fuckos have hacked into CERN, and they'll get into big trouble if they go public.
The name Committee of 300 appeared in actual CERN documents.
It's just a small note, but I adore how the first two science adventure games tie into each other so vaguely, mostly with references to the same anime and mascots existing, but then there's the repeated references to the Committee of 300. If you've only played Steins Gate, they largely act as a sort of boogeyman that the main cast never directly interacts with. However, if you've played Chaos Head, specifically the Noah version, which why wouldn't you, your understanding of what the Committee of 300 actually is changes a lot. All this being said, Okabe just mostly doesn't want to give up having unbridled access to a literal time machine, which, like, hey, I can see that. Kurisu makes another internet reference and is almost called out on being an @channeler again, but she vehemently denies it. But speaking of CERN, Okabe asks for updates from Daru on how the hacking is going. At the moment, it looks like he's gone as deep as he can, but he's looking into being able to cut into the LHC and be able to use it themselves. Bro, what the fuck? Who is this guy? Okay, but how's it going getting into the IBN database?
We can't, remember?
Huh? But Okabe got Daru and IBN, right? Yeah, so as it turns out, the IBN 5100 Okabe grabbed from the shrine is gone. and apparently was never here in the first place. Okabe spends a little too long being confused about this, and his compatriots do as well. A small critique that is going to get somewhat compounded later on is that Hayashi really likes to repeat himself. His characters usually act so realistically that in moments like this, when they act really dumb out of nowhere, it kind of takes you out of the moment. This cast has literally already discussed that Okabe has memories from other timelines, so shouldn't everybody be on the same page of, if Okabe says something is one way but it isn't, that means that it was that way in a different world line, but it still takes them a really long time to get on the same page about this. And then Kurisu is a genius when she figures it out. Again. Okabe confesses that in addition to the Lotto 6 ticket, the world line was also altered by both Moeka and Luka. So at some point, because of one of those changes, the IBN disappeared. He calls Luka, and he doesn't remember Okabe coming over to ask for it, though it seems to have been at the shrine at least at some point.
I don't know the details.
Luka seems a little oddly unsure, but okay. Next person on the list to contact is Ferris, who had the PC before it was at the shrine.
Ferris-chan? Good afternoon, Nyan. It's Mayushi, Nyan.
Ferris again says that yes, she did have it, and yes, she did donate it to the shrine. Just in case that doesn't work out, Okabe asks if she could potentially track down another, and she agrees, on one condition. She wants Okabe to come over. Oh my. And, of course, Mayuri and Daro decide to tag along.
Mayushi's never been to Ferris-chan's place. I thought I'd like to visit once.
I mean, it's Ferris-tan's home. No way I'm missing this.
On the way, Okabe swings by the shrine, but Luka isn't there, and for some reason, Luka's dad can't find it. Odd. So they head off to Ferris's. Before they make it, they run into a very familiar woman. Moeka is squatting on the ground with her phone in front of her face, as usual.
IBN. Gone. Why is it gone? Why can't I find it? Is it really in this town? Don't tell me it's already. It should be here. Has to be. FB said so.
So clearly it wasn't her who took it. There's another possibility gone. Also, Mayuri knows who Moeka is, so somehow another change made Moeka go to the lab again. But we don't have time for more shenanigans. Onward to Ferris. On the way, Okabe asks Mayuri what Ferris's real name is, and while Daru plugs his ears, Mayuri spills the beans that it's Akiha Rumiho.
The same characters as in Akihabara. Appropriate.
Their destination turns out to be a huge, fancy high-rise building. The apartment is on the top floor, and they're greeted by a fucking butler. Holy moly. He leads them to Ferris, and even on her day off, she's wearing her cat ears and speaking in Yanyanian. The dedication to the bit is admirable. Okabe demands she explain herself, primarily how the fuck she's living here on a maid's salary.
Yeah. Well, if you must know, this land originally belonged to my family, yeah? By the way, Ferris has considerable influence on Akihabara's development, Nyan. It was Ferris who convinced the development board to actively promote Moe culture in Akiba, yeah?
Of course it was. Holy shit. She flirts very openly with Okabe, then asks the three of them to keep all of this a secret and just treat her as normal. They readily agree, and Okabe wants to get to the point. He asks her what her requested price for helping them acquire another IBN is. It is, of course,
my price is to let me use your time machine, yeah?
No shit. We are not once again systematically going through all the love interests and having them use our time machine so we can mirror this in the plot later on. Don't worry about it, it's not blatant at all. Okabe agrees on one condition, that Ferris become a lab mem. Daru is, of course, ecstatic about this. The only requirement, Okabe warns, is that she must take the blood oath.
Ferris Nyan. If thou dost desire to join the hallowed order of lab mems, then by the code passed down in high ancient from an age long forgotten, pledge thy flesh, thy bone, thy blood, and thy soul to the grail of heaven, and swear fealty everlasting.
I didn't understand a word of that.
Oh no! What do I do? Mayushi never ate any blood loaf. Does that mean Mayushi's not a lab mem?
Ferris, of course, takes this way too seriously, grabbing a knife from the table and seemingly cutting herself. It's actually just a letter opener, so it doesn't break the skin, though. And, of course, Okabe grants her the lab mem number of 007. Both him and Daru get big hugs, and Okabe does a whole bit about having her wrapped around his grubby little scientist fingers. We'll see how that works out for him. It seems that Ferris wants to send her email to her father 10 years ago. Kurisu is still back at the lab, so he gives her a call.
Hello?
It's me. What's the situation? She hung up on me. Again. It's Hohin Kyoma. Don't hang up.
Oh, it's Okabe. I was sure it was a prank call. You were talking crazy, so I got scared and hung up.
In other words, you fear the insanity of Hohin Kyoma. Well, I suppose you can't be blamed for...
She hangs up again. Eventually, he gets her back on the line and they set up the phone wave. One problem. Just like Moeka, Ferris doesn't want to tell them what's in her D-mail. And without Kurisu here to talk her down, Ferris gets what Ferris wants. Wrapped around his finger, my ass. When Okabe comes to, he's still in Ferris's apartment. However, now she and Daru and Mayuri are sitting playing Ryan at Axis Battlers. She's kicking their asses.
Besides, I promised Papa that I'd win the next tournament, nya? I can't lose to anyone before then, Nyan. Papa said that if Ferris won, he'd take time off work to congratulate me, Nyan.
They all go on about her upcoming opponents and how great she's done in previous tournaments, but wait. Earlier, the whole point of the Ferris Cup was that it was unofficial. Ferris has never been to a tournament before. Before he can think too hard about it, Ferris's father enters and explains that he and Ferris have to take off, so they all vacate. Okabe's just about to ask the two of them if they want to get some grub when they notice that Mayuri is gone. They find her a little ways away, wandering towards the station.
Okarin! Mayushi was thinking about stopping by Nakano Broadway before going home.
Hold on, though. Why does she need to go all the way to Nakano when they are literally in Akihabara, the world's otaku capital? Why, Toranoana and Animate are just right over there.
There aren't any Toranoanas or Animates in Akiba. That's why Mayushi's going to Nakano to buy doujinshi.
Once again, another disconnect. And once again, it takes a little too long for Okabe to catch up to what's happened. You see, in this timeline, otaku culture doesn't exist in Akiba. It's still the electric town. Not even May Queen plus Nyan Nyan is there. It's now just a boring ramen shop, and Mayuri works at a boring old regular cafe. Now Okabe's really wondering what Ferris's email said, but it's not like he can do anything about it. This is reality now. He goes out on a walk to see the new Akiba the next morning, and it seems it's not all bad.
What I discover is that, although the chaotic energy familiar to me has receded, Akiba is still Akiba at its core. Electronics otaku and PC maniacs walk the streets with unkempt hair, wrinkled clothes, and eyes burning with intense purpose. The maids and young female otaku have disappeared, but the hobbyist essence of the town is unchanged.
He tells us how they all met Ferris in this timeline, at least as Mayuri told to him. Daru was in a small Rhinet tournament in Ikebukuro, but got a stomach ache, and so Mayuri and Okabe competed in his place against Ferris. She trashed them, but they've been good friends ever since. Just then, Okabe gets an email from at 96pbb.com. The email says, "We're watching you," and attached is an image of Jello.
Is it the organization? CERN? If so, then this mail is a threat. Oh shit, what do I do? Do I tell someone? Who? I can't involve anyone. It's a prank. It has to be. Ignore it. But what if it's serious? Are the men in black coming? I'm dead. They'll erase me. Erase us. What do I do? What the hell do I...
Panicking, he flees the busy streets and winds up back at the lab. Ultimately, he decides to write the mail off as a prank and simply not worry about it. I'm sure it's fine. Besides, there's cute girls waiting for him. Mayuri, Luka, and Kurisu are sitting on the couch, the former two looking at a cosplay album. Mayuri mentions wanting to take a trip to the beach with all the lab mems, and Kurisu refuses on account of the two perverts. But hold on, shouldn't that also count out Luka? What's that supposed to mean?
Didn't we tell you earlier? Lukako's a bona fide guy.
A deathly cold silence descends on the lab. Luka starts crying. If you want to give me stupid nicknames, that's fine. I mean, it's not, but what you said just now is below the belt. I didn't take you for the kind of guy who thinks it's funny to hurt people's feelings, but I guess I was wrong. You're a real jerk.
It's okay. So that's how Okabe-san sees me.
Okabe tries to cover his ass, but even Mayuri is saying now that Luka is a girl. And so, Okabe does something stupid. He gropes her to try to prove that she has a penis. And finds jack shit. So, you know that elephant I mentioned earlier? Yeah, it's getting a bit agitated right now, so let's talk about Luka. Obviously, what we just witnessed was absolutely fucking objectionable. It's gross, it's weird, I really don't like this scene. They absolutely did not need to take it that far. Right around this point, you may be thinking to yourself, yes, here's the part of the story where they treat trans people fucking terribly. Even if we are stuck in the middle of the bona fide Japanese never say trans mentality, Luka is trans. Like, there are a lot of instances where that line gets blended in Japanese media, but in everything but name, Luka is a trans woman. She expresses distinct interest in being a woman over a man, even going so far as to take on the consequences of her whole life changing to make that happen, and you just know they're about to play off this whole groping scene as a joke, and Luka is literally just going to have to be entirely fine with this, and they're going to move on. Right?
Anyway, I better apologize to Lukako. I hope she doesn't get PTSD because some pervert, me, groped her. I'll need to be as gentle as humanly possible from now on. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if she never spoke to me again. I have no one but myself to blame.
Oh. Not only did he immediately switch to using the correct pronouns, but he genuinely seems to feel a real sense of remorse. He admits that that was the stupidest thing he could have done and is willing to accept the consequences of his actions. I don't mean to be so surprised about this, but if you are someone who is less familiar with Japanese media, this isn't something that happens very often. Today in 2025, Japanese society still has a lot of trouble accepting gay people, let alone trans ones, and this is back in 2009. Of course, now Okabe has to continue making a bit of an ass of himself by going on about reading Steiner and being this world's observer. Kurisu hits him in the head with a big English book several times. We're going to circle back to Luka in the next video, and again, while the depiction of them is not perfect, it definitely treats Luka as much more of a person than a lot of its peers. Looking at you, Persona. Okabe is heavily punished for his actions, and then flees the lab as soon as Kurisu is done with him. Outside, he runs into Suzuha, who is on her break from work. She offers to take him cycling, claiming that one person can fit on the back of her bike, and then of course makes him pedal. They make it to the station, and Okabe takes a rest.
You know, it's only been 10 days since I arrived in Tokyo.
Vacation? No, that can't be right.
I'm hunting for my father.
Great, so we've got another father situation on our hands. Apparently she came here to Tokyo to look for him, and she's only got one chance. She knows he might appear at a certain place tomorrow.
If I miss him tomorrow, then I'll have to leave. I've already made up my mind. I don't find him tomorrow, I'll give up.
Of course, it's time for Okabe to do his thing, and he tries to cheer her up a bit by claiming she'll be his next subject. They'll just simply send an email to her father telling him not to abandon her. But it's not that simple. She doesn't know his phone number or email.
You're a nice guy. You know that? I think talking to you really did help.
Are you trying to insult me? I am not a nice guy. I'm a mad scientist who experiments on women and children!
He tells her to come by the lab tomorrow, whether she meets her father or not, and she says she will, if she does meet him, and then she takes off on her bike and leaves him behind. The next day, Okabe explains the new operation to the crew. They're going to have a party to either celebrate with Suzuha or cheer her up. Daru, Ferris, and Moeka couldn't show up, so it's just Mayuri, Kurisu, and Luka who still decided to come around after yesterday. While they prep for the party, Okabe is going to shadow Suzuha to make sure she doesn't leave, but Kurisu has a conniption, and then she makes him help her get groceries instead. While they're out, they just so happen to run into Daru. Apparently he couldn't show up because he's going to a time travel meetup today, but Okabe mentions Ferris's home cooking and he breaks immediately. So they lead him back to the lab, and it's just disappointment after disappointment for poor Daru. Ferris is obviously not there, and what the ladies are cooking up, well...
I'm getting dizzy. This isn't the future I was hoping for.
You're telling me. I'll never forget this, Ocarine. Never.
I'm sorry. Truly, but please, Daru, stay with me to the end.
I'll order pizza as insurance.
Alas, Suzuha never shows. Right before the girls are about to leave for the night, Okabe gets a message.
Goodbye.
Okabe runs out of the lab to go after her. He sees her at the station crying, but she runs away as soon as she sees him. He chases after her, but can't catch her. Finally, he has to head back to the lab in defeat. However, Okabe has a plan. The next morning, exactly at noon, he starts up the phone wave, name subject to change, and sends himself a message.
Don't listen to Chris. Pursue Suzuha.
I don't know if you've noticed, but that number keeps getting smaller, doesn't it? Okabe rushes outside, and there is Suzuha's bike, right where it should be, outside the Bronze workshop. He asks her to catch him up on what happened last night.
Well, I was on my way home from the time machine meet when...
Hold on. The time machine meetup? She was going to the same meetup that Okabe stopped Daru from going to? Hayashi, come on! Anyway, we brush past that. Suzuha comments that the lab seems like a fun place to be, and because she now knows about the time machine, Okabe decides to induct her as Lab Mem 008.
I guess I don't have a choice, huh? I'm all yours.
She agrees to stay in Tokyo, and maybe not all hope is lost. She could still end up finding her dad. Okabe asks if she has any leads, and she only knows one thing, that he goes by a codename, Tighter. Okabe freaks out, tells her he knows him, and that he's posting on @channel. But apparently, that's not it.
His name's not John. The name my father used was... Barrel Tighter.
And then the chapter ends like this is some big reveal, but okay.
I open my eyes to a deep vermilion sky. I'm on my back, lying face up. The sky is vast and the color is ominous. I've never seen anything like this before in my entire life. Where am I?
Okabe finds himself in a mysterious wasteland, the isolation and silence making him question if he's even real.
Found you, Okarin.
He processes that this is Mayuri and comes back to life.
This is the Earth, you know. 70 million years ago. Some scary people sent you here in a time machine. Mayushi went looking for you and found Okarins from many, many world lines. And now, Okarin and Mayushi are going to die here. But I know that another Okarin and Mayushi will pick up where we left off. 70 million years in the future. So everything's A-okay.
This is, obviously, another dream. Another dream that, as far as I'm aware, means absolutely nothing, save to illustrate that, hey, Okabe's actually a little stressed out right now. Ferris calls a minute later to blab for a while and let Okabe know that she still has not found him another IBM 5100. Of course, it's difficult, it's an incredibly rare PC. Okabe feels like someone was guiding him to the one he had last time, and knowing how time shenanigans work, someone probably was.
Whoa. What's this? But there's no way that's right.
Daru is working at his PC, and when Okabe comes over, Daru explains that for some reason, there is a fiber optic cable underneath this building that heads directly to CERN, all the way in France.
Maybe CERN has been expecting us for years. John Titor claims that CERN completed their time machine in 2034. Just 2 years later, the world is a dystopia under their rule. Maybe the CERN of 2034 considers our opposition in 2010 a threat.
Honestly, he has a point, for once. However, they both get distracted from this very important issue because thanks to this connection, Daru can just get right into the LHC and use it. Kurisu also has more news for them. She's starting to figure out how the phone wave works. Apparently, the signals for the waves from the phone and the waves from the microwave are getting mixed together, creating a sort of particle accelerator. Thus, the phone wave, name subject to change, does indeed create many black holes, but they don't disappear immediately like they should. And that's what the lifter is for. They still don't know what that is, and at the moment, it's looking increasingly unlikely that they ever will, considering that it's taken CERN years to even get it working, let alone control it properly. But this gives Okabe an idea. Instead of trying to control the lifter, what if they try to work within the set limitations?
What if we could convert a human to data, then compress that data into just 36 bytes? We could send that person through the ring singularity just like a D-mail, couldn't we?
Daru thinks that's impossible, but for once, Kurisu is silent. Of course. If it works, then maybe we can do it. Oh yeah. Did you forget that Kurisu isn't a physicist, but a brain scientist? Not only that, but the university she's been studying at has actually been actively working on copying human memories. Several years ago, the psychophysiology lab at my school, Victor Condrea University, developed a technology called visual rebuilding, or VR for short. Oh! Did you mean only the entire plot of Chaos Head? Anyway, long story short, Kurisu can map human memories and copy them, and Daru can use the LHC to transfer and compress them using the black holes it creates. Then they can get transferred to the cell phone and into the noggin of whoever it calls. Essentially, it's time travel. They call it a time leap. It's got some limitations, however. You don't want to give your memories to someone else because the electrical signals might be rejected.
Wouldn't want to jump into somebody else's body. I mean, unless it's the body of a cute girl.
Don't me, you idiot. Obviously, that means you also can't time leap to before you were born, and the closer your brain is to how it is now, the better. All of this culminates in an announcement by Okabe.
We're going to build your time leap machine, Christina, and you better not say it can't be done. Not after showing me the way. Together, we shall complete the first time leap machine in human history!
For once, even Kurisu is enthusiastic. Once again, it is here where the story splits and we can get two potential scenes, one with Mayuri and one with Kurisu, and once again, I am at a loss for how you obtain either. Maybe it's whose ending you're closest to, I've got no clue. In Kurisu, she confesses that the person on the phone the other night was her father. She used to be incredibly close to him as a kid, but when she was old enough that it turned out she was smarter than him, he distanced himself and eventually left her life entirely. Right now he's living in Aomori, and Okabe agrees that once this whole ordeal with the time leap machine is done, he'll go with her to visit him. Man, that almost sounds like something a boyfriend would do. In Mayuri, she expresses joy that the lab is so much more lively and that it's no longer just her and Okabe, though she does seem perhaps mildly jealous that Okabe and Kurisu can speak on such an intellectual level that she can't. But Okabe tells her that the lab would fall apart without her, which is very true. Mayuri is the glue that holds this team together, and that's one of the reasons why the dynamic between the four main characters works so well in the first place. The next day, Okabe and Mayuri go shopping for parts for the time leap machine. Okay, well, Okabe is shopping, and Mayuri is getting distracted and making him look for her. But today it seems that Mayuri is filled with questions. She first asks Okabe to clarify what the difference between time leaping and the D-mails are. Obviously, you can do things with time leaps that you can't with D-mails, because instead of sending instructions, you're sending you back to the you before. Of course, you can't send any physical objects or anything like that, only your memories.
But then, what about Mayushi 1 week ago? Where do her memories go? She disappears? Then, if Mayushi's memories leap into the Mayushi 1 week ago, what happens to Mayushi now?
Oh my god, guys. I think Mayuri's trying to form a thought. Look at my baby girl all grown up and experiencing existential questions about the nature of the self. Mayuri continues asking him about what would happen to the Mayushi talking to him right now if she went back into the past and decided to change where she went today. The present would change, obviously.
Oh, and you wouldn't notice the difference, Okarin? That would be kinda sad.
For who? Me?
No, for Mayushi. Maybe that's why Chris-chan doesn't want to change the past.
Okabe doesn't really get it, but Mayuri moves on to asking about time leaping into the future. He ponders the use of the time leap machine for a little while before Mayuri pulls him back to being disappointed that she can't go back to elementary school because she wants to see little Okarin again. On the way home, they happen to run into Moeka. She looks very tired and a little upset, so they call out to her. She ignores both of them.
Hey, are you listening? If you have a problem, the insane mad scientist Hoin Kyomo will gladly assist. But be warned, by the time I'm through, Akiba will be an ocean of blood.
She jolts up at those words. Weird reaction, but they probably just surprised her. She proceeds to, as normal, type on her phone in lieu of actually speaking. She asks him about his progress on the time machine, and after getting her word that she won't write an article about it, he explains their new direction. She kind of freaks out a bit when Okabe does his whole shtick and takes forever to tell her. I don't think Moeka's doing so hot right now.
That's amazing. You've made a real breakthrough. Congratulations. When will it be finished, Moeka?
I can't be sure. There are still several problems remaining. If they don't give us too much trouble, I guess we'll have it done in a week. Everything is the choice of Steins Gate. I have faith there exists a path to success.
She kinda just stumbles away into the crowd. Okay, that's weird. Mayuri and Okabe go their separate ways at the station, and when he returns to the lab, Okabe finds Kurisu on the computer, browsing at channel. She panic minimizes it when she sees him, but the damage has been done. He finally confronts her, calling her soul tainted. She asks him to explain how he knows.
There's nothing to explain. You use @channel memes in conversation. I'd have to be stupid not to notice.
Feels bad, man.
That's an @channel meme too.
Ugh. Later that evening, Mayuri has returned and claims she's going to stay the night so she can get her costumes done for an upcoming convention. Her parents have never let her stay before, but since Kurisu is here, it's apparently all right. After a while, Okabe goes out to get some dinner at the 7-Eleven, which, this is Japan, I promise that's not as sad as it sounds, but on the way back, he gets an odd message.
You know too much.
Okabe freaks out and runs back to the lab. But when he gets there, Mayuri and Kurisu are nowhere to be found. And then he hears the shower running. He panics because he thinks they're dead in there and just kind of walks in on them bathing. Steins Gate, I love you, but why do you feel it's necessary to have these out-of-place fan service moments? Like, it's not even a regular thing in the game. It happens like 3 times. This is so stupid, and we've already spent too much time on it, so I'm moving on. 2 days later, and progress on the time loop machine has been good. There's one problem, however. They need to run the phone wave a couple of times to make their final adjustments, but Tennouji is right downstairs, and he has not been happy about their experiments. Someone's got to go talk to him about it.
It's up to you, Ocarine.
Take care of it.
In other words, you're sending me to die.
He reluctantly takes his role.
Okarin, don't die, okay?
Within the dim haze of the Brawn Tube workshop, Tennouji, Nai, and Suzuha are watching something on the 42-inch CRT.
Yo, Okabe, buy a CRT.
This leads Okabe to a thought. All this time, and they've still been trying to figure out what their lifter is. Maybe it's, perchance, a CRT. Nah, no way. Okabe goes to talk to Suzuha and asks about her father. It goes. This gets Tennouji's attention.
I'm searching for my dad. I told you before, remember?
Oh, right. Go find their old man, Okabe.
She then warns him, again, to be careful around Makise Kurisu.
Listen to me. She's using you all. Makise Kurisu is connected to CERN. The credit for inventing the time machine was hers.
But Okabe doesn't believe this. She was genuinely shocked and angry when she learned what CERN has been up to after all. Unfortunately, just then, Kurisu sets off the phone wave and the ground starts shaking.
Okabe! How many times do I have to tell you not to shake the building?
Luckily for Okabe, the shaking intensifies, and Tennouji prioritizes protecting his baby, the 42-inch CRT. He grabs a remote and shuts it off, and the shaking stops. Immediately. Okabe grabs the remote from Tennouji and switches the TV back on.
I found it! I found it! This is the lifter! It's so obvious, why didn't I see it before? Of course, this must be the work of Steins Gate. It chose this moment for a reason!
What the hell are you laughing at, Okabe? You're scaring my daughter. I'm raising your rent, you hear? And you're paying for that CRT.
A little silence, please, Mr. Braun. This is a most glorious moment. For I have just been chosen as the ruler of all space and time.
Tennouji socks him a good one, and Okabe flees like the little piss boy he is. Back in the lab, he tells the crew about his discovery, and Kurisu is obviously upset, mostly at herself for not thinking of that sooner. According to her, the cathode ray tube, CRT, contains something called an electron gun that accelerates electrons. By freak coincidence, the big one downstairs is working at the exact right level to make time travel possible. Kurisu bullies him into going back downstairs to get the TV on again, and now there's nothing to stop them from completing their invention. Downstairs, Tennouji is apparently pissed as hell, so Suzuha and Nai are outside waiting it out. Okabe asks her for a favor. Can she distract Tennouji for just a moment?
You mean seduce him? Go on, touch it.
Okay, you fucking weirdo. Anyway, their plan goes off without a hitch. Suzuha ends up throwing her jacket over his head, giving them just enough time to run one last experiment. And of course, it works. They've confirmed their lifter. Suzuha gets in a minor amount of trouble, but all's well that ends well, ultimately. Later on, Mayuri finishes up her costume. It's the one for Luka, apparently.
I finished before Christian. We were racing.
You win, Mayuri. Congratulations. However, Kurisu is just behind her. She plugs in one last cord, and the time leap machine is complete. Everyone stands in silence.
I feel my enthusiasm cooling rapidly, the fire quenched by one stark question. What do we do with it?
They all seem to be at a bit of a loss, so Okabe suggests they decide on a name.
I vote Heavenly Express.
Phone Wave, 3rd edition, version 1.00.
Silly hat, Phone Wave-chan.
You guys have too much free time. Ultimately, she suggests just keeping the name Time Leap Machine, and since it's a lab rule that Mayuri is the tiebreaker, she agrees to keep it simple, stupid. Next, Kurisu explains how the Time Leap Machine works in more detail. In the simplest way possible, the headset scans and copies your memories, which they then beam over to the LHC, which will compress said memories to 36 bytes. Meanwhile, the phone wave does its thing, and so when the memories are sent back, they're shot through the black hole, and assuming that the recipient on the other end puts their phone to their ear, the memories will get beamed right in. She also talks about the potential flaws in the system. It's really important that no one else pick up the phone because the memories overwriting their own could cause serious damage to their noggin. Obviously. But okay, they've stalled long enough.
So, what do we do with it?
Kurisu suggests they immediately hand it over to the government, even if she's not pleased with this conclusion herself. Okabe obviously wants to use it, but when the poll goes out, no one wants to volunteer to be the first time leaper. Not even himself. Simply put, this is more complicated than emails. There's a lot of things that could go wrong, and a lot of things they simply don't know yet. The room is getting really tense. A lot of things are up in the air right now.
Hey, I have an idea. Why don't we make a banana time leap instead?
They have to explain to her that bananas don't have brains. Clearly she wasn't following any of the previous explanation, but that interjection breaks the tension.
Let's not experiment. We'll entrust the time leap machine to a suitable research institution. Then we'll announce it to the world.
It seems that everyone is in agreement. They also agree that another party is in order to celebrate their completion of the machine, and Okabe and Kurisu go out to buy some snacks. They take their time on the way back. However, Kurisu looks a little upset, so Okabe asks her about it, but no, apparently she's actually relieved that they're not experimenting. They begin bickering back and forth as usual, and Okabe has a thought.
It's only been 2 weeks since Kurisu and I met, and yet it already feels natural for us to be walking together, exchanging banter like this.
They're so cute. Can someone fucking stab me, please? Okabe wants her to remain at the lab, and as it turns out, that's a likely possibility. Going public with the time leap machine is going to cause a ruckus after all. They'll need her here. After they get back, the party quickly assembles. Ferris and Luka couldn't make it, but Suzuha and the usual crew are here, so it's a good time. Mayuri even might possibly have convinced Kurisu to cosplay.
Maybe you shouldn't bother.
Oh, that's right. Suzuha fucking hates Kurisu's guts. Kurisu decides that now is the best time to have this out once and for all. I've been meaning to ask, did I do something to you?
Not to me, but I know your true nature.
Wow, you can see into my heart? That's groundbreaking technology. I'd love to hear how it works.
Okabe, stop them from fighting!
Okabe gets in between them and tries to break them up by admonishing the both of them, but it doesn't really work. So time to fall back on the old reliable. Distract them by being a freak.
Looks like neither of you is willing to back down. So be it! Fight until there is no more fight to be had!
Then, share a manly handshake by the river and let friendship blossom. But in the future, when it comes time for you to venture into the real world, I hope you remember one thing. Nobody likes a party pooper.
Shut up! He flees back to Mayuri. Looks like this is all up to her.
Guys? Mayushi doesn't like it when you fight. Let's all get along, okay?
The two immediately agree. Holy shit, Mayuri is like Jesus or something.
He died for sins.
The two go their separate ways across the room, and Mayuri and Okabe sit on the couch. After a comment from Mayuri about how lively it is, Okabe recalls the series of events that led to where they are now. For the first few months of the lab's existence, it was just him and Mayuri, until he mentioned to Daru that May Queen plus Nyan Nyan was only a 3-minute walk away, and since then the number of lab mems has only grown. Mayushi mentions that with all the lab mems, it might behoove them to get a bigger space, or more chairs at least, but with the money from their invention, that won't be an issue anymore. Mayuri seems really happy, and Okabe asks her about it.
Just look! We've made so many friends. There's Daru-kun, Chris-chan, Luka-chan, Suzu-san, Moeka-san, Ferris-chan, Bron-san, Nai-chan, and more. In the spring, when you started this lab, you seemed so lonely. But now you're fine. You don't need me to be your hostage anymore.
What do you...
But before he can finish, a news bulletin appears on the TV. Apparently, there's been a bomb threat that suspended a bunch of train lines, all of which pass through Akiba. Okabe gets a bad feeling about this.
Okabe Rintaro, I need to know. You've completed the time leap machine, right?
Huh? Well, yeah.
I see. I just remembered I've got something to do. I'm going out.
And she just immediately fucks off. Something is definitely going on here. Okabe is finally sticking some pieces together.
The 2 threatening emails I received. Who sent them? And there's more. CERN, the LHC, Jellyman, the Z Program, government secrets, the organization, Men in Black, the Committee of 300, the Time Leap Machine. Taken separately, each of these elements was insignificant. But if I consider them a part of a single line, they all point to one inescapable truth. We've come too far.
Mayuri sees him panicking and squeezes his hand tightly. And it is then that the door bursts open and a bunch of men with guns swarm into the lab. They yell at the lab mems to put their hands in the air, and slowly, they comply. From outside, they hear a strange sound, heels clacking up the stairway. And finally, she appears.
Kiryu... Moeka.
Moeka-san?
We're taking the time machine. Makise Kurisu, Okabe Rintaro, Ashida Itaru. The 3 of you will come with us.
Okabe demands to know what's going on, but Moeka refuses to tell him. She just continues to exist, they come with her. She's got the men in this room, and apparently more stationed throughout all of Akiba. They've got nowhere to run. Obviously, it was them who sent the bomb threat as well.
The 3 of you come with us.
Why just the 3 of us? Because Moeka never asked for Mayuri, only the 3 who actually invented the machine. Mayuri tries to plead with her, but this just seems to anger her. Moeka takes out her gun and points it at them. If they won't come with her, she will kill them.
Who sent you? Who are you people?
We are from CERN.
She gets berated by the other men for telling them too much, but of course that was obvious, wasn't it?
If you continue to resist, I'll have to resort to extreme measures. Shiina Mayuri is not needed.
Stop! Gah!
Okabe tries to get to her, but is incapacitated by one of the men.
Okarin!
Mayuri, no!
For CERN, for FB, for CERN, for FB.
A dry crack rings through the air, and Okabe's face is splashed with blood. Mayuri's blood. She falls towards him, and he catches her. She's very dead.
Ah!
No! No!
You 3 come with us now. No more warnings. Resist and we'll kill you too.
Okabe is losing his shit. He still can't quite believe that she's dead.
Hey. Mayuri, please. Laugh for me. Like you always do. Greet me with your silly doo-doo-roo. Tell me you're alright. Tell me this isn't real.
He tries to fling himself at Moeka, but Kurisu stops him. They'll kill him too. He refuses to listen, however, trying one more time. Moeka fires the gun, and the bullet whizzes past his ear. A small stone has knocked the gun out of her hand. It's Suzuha. She rampages through the room, absolutely demolishing all of the men with guns. Finally, with all of them down, Moeka aims her gun at Suzuha, but Suzuha grabbed a gun herself and is aiming it right back at her.
Who are you?
42. TV. Turned on.
The time leap machine. Okabe can use the time leap machine to prevent this from ever happening.
If I use the machine, I can avert Mayuri's death. At the same time, it could fry my brain. Fry my brain, so what? Mayuri's dead. Shot in cold blood. This isn't right. I won't accept it.
He staggers to the development room where Kurisu is already waiting for him.
I'm going back.
No, I should be the one to—
I will save Mayuri.
But what if it fails? It doesn't matter. One of the men is waking up. He's coming into the development room. Okabe uses Mode Snake to fill the room with steam. He gets shot in the arm, but it doesn't matter. He's going to save Mayuri.
Wait for me, Mayuri. I won't die here. I'll cross through time to save you. Leap, my memories. Leap into the past. Leap!
The world explodes into light. And that's where we're going to end it today. What? Don't boo me! There was no other good spot, I'll have you know! So, true to the word of most of its fans, Steins Gate is half setup and half payoff. We covered the setup portion today, and I'm going to try my best to articulate why it's my favorite part of the game. It's relaxed. It's fun. The characters' relationships grow and change over the course of the story in a way that's satisfying. By the time we get to Chapter 5, our 4 main characters are a tight friend unit that can literally make a time leap machine in a week. The dynamics are flawlessly balanced as well. Kurisu and Daru are both a little standoffish in their own ways, but are easily pulled back into the group by their love of Mayuri, or more often their mutual hatred of Okabe's bullshit. Specifically, Kurisu goes from hating Okabe's guts to telling him her deepest, darkest secrets about her father. But she never loses her character. She never becomes a different person because she likes the main character now. She just softens a little bit in a pleasing way that makes us as the audience feel like we're finally being let in. Beyond that, the methods of storytelling are so unique. How often is it that a story will delve meticulously into the science behind its science fiction? Like I stated earlier, it's done so effectively that as a layman, I can't put my finger on where the actual science ends and the fiction begins. Consistently, my favorite scenes in this first half were the ones with the 4 idiots in the apartment listening to Kurisu explain science shit while Daru asks her to explain it again with boobs. Genuinely so fun for me. I was pretty complimentary to Steins Gate this video, despite my warning at the beginning. I had a couple of minor problems with it here and there, but overall had a great time with it. The second half, however, is where those little problems start to become not so little. You can already see some of the cracks forming. Steins Gate, despite its brilliance, is actually built on a somewhat flimsy structure. It hasn't set itself up well enough for the story it's going to become in its second half. You'll see what I mean soon. In the meantime, go invent a time machine or something. I don't know. You spent 3 hours watching this video, so you must have a lot of time in your hands, right? Maybe you can change Mayuri's death so that Hayashi never wrote it in the first place. Ooh, did I go there right at the end? Yeah. Yeah, I did.
Okay, is it barrel?
Yep, it's just barrel. It's the word barrel.
Just straight up barrel.
It's just
Your dad was a barrel.
My father was a barrel. My father was a barrel.
My father never need barrels.